I believe I am live on everything now. So today we're going to be watching the Kilotonics video. And before this, I did not realize that it was 4 hours long. I think some sections will be redundant for my content in the sense that like I've covered it already, or we already kind of know these people are bad, or like everyone who knows about this already kind of has like a formed opinion on these people. Or they're just not people I'm interested in covering. So like, why YouTube? You want to pick or not YouTube? OBS. You want to pick this up? Picked up the wrong thing. That's awesome. The Weasley Little Liar Awards by Kilo or Kilotonics. Getting chat set up, so pardon me for just a moment. So if we go down to the sections, we have Hasan BAD. I kind of talked about that, I think, in my last stream or 2 streams ago, where it feels like a lot of people, if they talk about Hasan in any way, they have to front load it with like, Hasan's so evil, guys. Don't get me wrong, I don't particularly like the guy either, but come on. Getting a little tired, isn't it? So, alright. All the chat set up. Twitch kick. I'm on all 3. Why is the... Oh, I remember why the video is stretched. So then we have Ethan the victim. I'm assuming that's him going over how Ethan Klein portrays himself as a victim a lot. Which, if you've seen the recent stuff with iDubbbz and how iDubbbz apologized, then the apology wasn't good enough, and Ethan is like sending cease and desists to iDubbbz. I don't know. I think Ethan's been acting up pretty bad lately with that. And don't get me wrong, I agree, he's had bad stuff happen to him, but this has gone on long enough. You know, it's personal to him, I get it, and that's the defense he uses. You know, if it happened to you, you would feel this way too. And I'll say, maybe, but you also have to realize when you're like personally in a situation, you may not have the same perspective that everyone else does. And I feel like Ethan Klein is treating it very one way. We have the Snarkifesto. We will probably be watching that just because I'm actually not sure what it's totally in reference to. And I would like the context, especially if it comes up later. We have CPS, CPS, CPS. I'm assuming that's more about Ethan, him claiming all about CPS. That might be interesting to see if he is able to like disprove or reinforce different parts of that story. I'll sue you, I'll take all your money. That's probably in relation to iDubbbz, KC Denims, and Frogan. Probably not iDubbbz, actually. Because the iDubbbz suing came out, I think, just after this video? Or just before? So then we have Cameron F305. I want to watch that because I think it would be funny. We have the Willie Mack show, which I want to watch because I am not particularly fond of Willie Mack. I don't care about Tectone and Noxtaku. I've covered them a bunch. I don't like them. We already know that they're grifters. This is probably, you know, revelations for some people who do watch them. Not for me. Then we have Nicholas Diorio, and that's the section that I really want to get to, and it'll probably be the last one. And then if I am not dead tired, we will continue watching Dishonorable Mention and Hasan BAD? Okay. Let's get to the Snarkifesto. And we can also have, maybe there will be context clues to stuff. All right.
Let's start with snark. After the leftovers ended, the growing rift between Ethan and Hasan's communities sparked increased activity on the H3 Snark subreddit. For those of you that don't know what snark means, here's a quick overview. Snark communities are online groups dedicated to sharing negative or critical content about a figure that the group is centered around. That's it. They're basically just groups of people who dislike an influencer or a public figure, and they talk shit about them, laugh about them, criticize them. That's all it is. H3 has had their own snark community since early in 2023, but as Ethan's content became more political and as the feud with Hasan began, it gradually started growing in popularity. Now, it should be noted that most of these places, especially on Reddit, have strict rules against crossing the line. I'm
gonna say, I think this guy needs to be louder. I feel like there's something up with his mic. I also have weird ears. I feel like, or I have been told that I can pick up frequencies a bit better. So I'm kind of thinking this guy needs to talk louder into his mic. Oh shit, you know what? I actually have my audio up way too much. But you can hear some of the inflections of like Fry from kind of talking more quiet. That might also just be his voice, and I am just being annoying.
They typically moderate against posts that encourage or facilitate harassment, such as doxing. And the ones
okay, no, it was me. It was me having my volume up too much.
You can always find psycho people who engage in poor behavior in literally any online community, even fan ones. But this doesn't mean the community itself is an issue. For this reason, as a concept, snark seems mostly harmless. But Ethan doesn't see it this way, and even since before the leftovers ended, Ethan has taken massive issue with his own snark community, and he essentially considers them to be headquarters of the harassment campaign that he believes he's facing.
Well, yeah.
H3 Snark, which is a subreddit dedicated
before H3 Snark. It was, well, before it became political about Hasan, I think it was about like Trisha Paytas fans who didn't like Ethan.
to not even like feedback, like just blatant fucking horrific harassment and like defamation.
So what exactly is Ethan referring to when he talks about this organized harassment and defamation campaign? Honestly, it's a little difficult to say. Ethan's been historically pretty non-specific in his complaints about Snark, but he has on occasion pointed out a few hard examples, so let's look at some of those. So here's a post from a little over a year ago, speculating that Teddy Fresh, the client's clothing brand, potentially plagiarized the design of a new release, because in addition to the visual similarities, the senior designer for Teddy Fresh previously liked the post from the designer they're alleged to have stolen from. Here's Ethan talking about this post on stream.
On the Snark subreddit, the top post right now is dedicated to identifying and harassing non-public Teddy Fresh employees. We have no recourse.
Okay, I'm actually gonna turn the audio off for a second because I'm booting up a game and I don't want it to blow out your eardrums if it can be avoided. Sorry. Also need to change it to not full screen. Wonder if I can use a controller with this. Controls. Dude, Twitch keeps blipping a little bit and it's fucking with me. Keyboard and mouse, Xbone. No. Use keyboard. Game. Okay, that should be okay. Let's get back to the video. Or let me get the game to show up at all. Playing a classic video game. Dead Island Riptide. Boom, boom.
Like, this is not okay what's happening. I don't know how Reddit allows this. I really don't. It's fucking sickening.
Okay, so Ethan claims this post is dedicated to identifying and harassing non-public Teddy Fresh employees. But the problem is this person did have senior designer at Teddy Fresh in their public Instagram bio. Teddy Fresh also routinely posts about their designers, including their names, in their own Instagram posts. And Hila Klein has posted this person on her own YouTube channel, including naming them and introducing them as a designer at Teddy Fresh.
vlog. I'm Sean. I'm resident senior designer of Teddy Fresh.
The H3 crew seemed to be under the impression that this post was a dox, by the way, because the document they compiled on it was titled Snark Docs. But based on what I can see, this poster wasn't trying to identify anybody. Motherfucker, you guys are the ones that identified them.
It's not a lie if you believe it.
And furthermore, Ethan is shocked that Reddit allows this
Great
post,
Seinfeld
calling it
reference.
targeted harassment. But how exactly is an accusation of wrongdoing by itself harassment? There's no call to action, there's no threat, there's no invasion of privacy. It's literally just a few photos and evidence for their claim. Surely Ethan doesn't consider it to be harassment to accuse somebody of plagiarism, right? There's this video, apparently by a former H3 Snark moderator, supposedly exposing the harassment the community engages in. And some of the examples they list are like, just listen.
The Snarkers would even post drawings of crew members for the purpose of everyone else in the live chat to make fun of them. But the thing that stuck out to me from the times I was looking at the H3 Snark live chat is that they really hate Zach. Whenever Zach was on screen, the H3 Snark chat would go crazy and comment about how ugly Zach is.
Drawings? People calling Zach ugly? Oh my god, we need to do something about this. Oh, and by the way, Ethan fully endorses this video.
An ex-snarker made a video about the Snark subreddit that I thought was wonderful. This all took place on Reddit's platform. They have a live chat feature that during every show they would open up, or they would engage in targeted, relentless harassment against all of us. I'm very grateful to this person. People don't understand the forces that I'm dealing with, of how fucking disgustingly evil these people are.
So look, if you scroll through the H3 Snark page, you'll see posts that are making fun of things Ethan has said, sometimes clipping something from a recent stream. Here's a post just sharing something Hasan said about Ethan. This subreddit is like 99% just posts like this.
Well,
So
that's
I'm
gotta
not
be
saying there's never been a
crazy.
post
Wait,
here
he
that could
endorsed that? Dude, that's crazy. He literally endorsed the video.
qualifies harassment.
I gotta go back. So he endorsed this video?
The H3 Snark chat would go crazy and comment about how ugly Zach is.
Drawings? People calling Zach ugly? Oh my god, we need to do something about this. Oh, and by the way, Ethan fully endorses this video.
An ex-snarker made a video about the Snark subreddit that I thought was wonderful. This all took
Dude,
place
that's
on
crazy.
Reddit's platform.
Oh, he literally had. Okay.
They have a live
I
chat
missed that. I saw Ethan. I didn't recognize that.
feature that during every show they would open up, or they would engage in targeted, relentless harassment against all of us. I'm very grateful to this person. People don't understand the forces that I'm dealing with, of how fucking disgustingly evil these people are.
So look,
Dude,
if you
that's
scroll
crazy.
through the H3 Snark page, you'll see posts that are making fun of things Ethan has said, sometimes clipping something from a recent stream. Here's a post.
Oh, do you need food? Dude, I was just about to say something fun. I mean, I don't know what to say, really. That's just... Jesus. Slapping the desk. That's crazy. He's literally endorsing his cat. Jesus. So a video that seems like mostly neutral or maybe even negative towards Zach. Ethan is endorsing it and being like, guys, this harassment towards the entire cast is crazy. I mean, Ethan's just talking in general, but after a video like that, that's a little weird. Sorry, that's just like mind-boggling, right? See what else gets added. Sorry, I thought I pressed play.
Just sharing
There we
something
go.
Hasan said about Ethan. This subreddit is like 99% just posts like this. So I'm not saying there's never been a post here that could qualify as harassment, but if for Ethan things like laughing at drawings does qualify, it makes me seriously question his judgment of the severity of what's happening
Wait,
here.
that drawing
Moving on,
was
another part of
considered
Ethan's claim is that
harassment?
this community is defaming him and his business, and Ethan really doesn't like defamation.
This is defamation, right? No, defamation. Defamation. I'm literally going to sue you for defamation. Uh-oh.
But this part is even harder to evaluate because is Ethan is even less specific about the defamation. He tends to just generally kind of whine about defamation and slander, and rarely, if ever, provides any specific examples of it.
These are like 3 huge fucking communities that are posting about me and Hila every fucking day. Fucking relentless slander, straight up lies, defamation.
One of the only times I could find him providing actual evidence was this infamous Ramadan post, which contained a lie that the H3H3 subreddit was removing posts celebrating Ramadan. Ethan was understandably pretty upset about this, but when you look into what actually happened here, it seems likely that this example of defamation just doesn't really mean much of anything. According to the moderators of the subreddit, the post was originally made by like a rogue mod on an alt account, and once they found out that it was false, they deleted the post, demodded the user, and updated their rules to have higher standards. So one user on a popular forum maliciously spread misinformation, was caught, got punished, and then the owners took steps to try to prevent it from
Ethan
happening
didn't
again.
address that.
So this
that
just isn't
had been
indicative
addressed
of any systemic or coordinated misconduct. This is just called the internet. Plus, it seems like this should be
that's
one,
what
a place
seems
like
to
this
be the issue
moderated.
so far, is that Ethan is literally like, he wants to reap all the rewards of being an internet figure, and then doesn't want to have any of the backlash that also comes with being an internet figure, which is so weird because like it's not like Ethan is new to the internet. He's been on it for a decade plus. And it's like he's trying to, I don't know, hate, like I don't hate Ethan. Wouldn't say I particularly like him either, but I used to watch him all the time as a kid. And so it's one of those things that's like super weird. And don't get me wrong, I've been having like a similar issue lately with Sam Hyde of all people. Because Sam Hyde, like again, I think he's funny. I think he has like great clips, whatever. But recently I feel like with that and well, less him, I guess, although finding out that he was associated with Coffee Brand Coffee was not great. With his $1 million caffeine.
You know what I'm talking about. The white stuff.
Our
dealer lived close to here.
But there's like the fish tank stuff, especially, like kind of abandoning fish tank, and I don't know. I don't think it floundered by any means. Season 5 was probably the most popular season. It's one of those things where it gets more popular with every single run. But Jet kind of going on a weird idea spree where he's kind of letting the game flounder in a lot of ways. Or not the game, the season flounder compared to season 2, 3, 4 would have been probably a lot better if Jet did the housing stuff properly, or if they like weren't getting harassed by the police. However that worked out. But especially where he recently fucked over one of the game developers and is making like a Blood Games thing, and he's like, I want to have this like crazy idea where there's like a fish tank for 6 months that he wants to work towards, and then is spending like tens of thousands of dollars, and is like I don't think he's like outright banning people, but he's also not, he's also just being like weirdly hostile towards everyone. That might be like a fish tank ism. But it just feels very weird. And I feel like both parties, this is how it relates, were very pro, like, say whatever you want, you can shit on me if you think I made a mistake. Have become like, hey, don't fuck with me or I will hate you forever. And in Ethan's case, that's with his actual community, where he wants all the goods of having a community and none of the bads. And then with Sam Hyde and Jet, they're being like overly weeding of their, I guess, like internal community. Fuck, I might not have even needed to drive over here. And they're like weeding out anybody who isn't like completely I don't want to say sycophantic, but that's definitely what it feels like.
What's in here?
They have rules against misinformation, and they do enforce them. Like if you go search through the subreddit, you can find hundreds of examples of the moderators telling the subreddit not to contact sponsors, to respect people's privacy, marking certain posts as being satirical, all things that point to them actually trying to prevent
those are
harassment
reasonable.
and defamation. Like with any popular forum, some stuff might occasionally slip through the cracks, but this stuff would be outliers. It's quite obviously not the purpose of this community. So Ethan's claims that this place exists solely to conduct an organized harassment campaign against him are at best flimsy, and at worst, kind of bullshit. But there's one more thing Ethan has shown, and it's this screenshot he shared from Discord of supposedly a moderator of H3 Snark sharing the address of the H3 and Teddy Fresh studios. Now, if this is exactly how Ethan describes it, it could be an issue. But this looks like a private DM, not a public Discord server. There's no information about who this was sent to, whether this person is still a moderator, whether they even ever were a moderator, or whether any of the other mods knew about it. So I kind of just don't really know what I'm looking at here. Without more context, this just isn't evidence of organized, coordinated harassment. This could be nothing more than just one person doing something wrong, which again can happen in any large online community. So look, my perception of what's happened here is that Ethan conflates harassment with unwanted negative scrutiny, and he might even conflate slander with things he disagrees with. 99.9% of the users here are just talking, making jokes, criticizing him, voicing their opinions. Some of them may say things that are untrue or even cruel, but dude, that's what the internet is. H3 has millions of subscribers.
Yeah.
At a certain point, you can't control what everyone says or thinks about you. So as far as I can tell, Ethan just isn't the victim of anything unique here. But obviously he disagrees, and his response to these insults, to criticism, and to this one lie that was ultimately removed was declaring all-out war on Reddit and H3 Snark.
And it's just fucking disgusting. Like Reddit, you are disgusting. Fucking shame on you. The CEO, the officers, everybody who's in this company is 100% liable for everything that's happening.
100% liable?
He
Really?
started by going to Reddit and complaining about Snark numerous times, demanding that they take action against the subreddit.
And I've tried to notify Reddit, and they just don't fucking care. We reported it, and we were trying to.
Well, it seems like they have rules that they follow.
Avenue possible with Reddit.
I don't know what you can do.
Then I'm gonna have to start holding Reddit accountable.
Not that Reddit
Which led to
hasn't
quite a
banned
lot of
other
whining
Reddits
from
for
Ethan when he
seemingly
chose
no
not to do
reason.
anything.
But
The whole Snark phenomenon is so pathetic that Reddit allows this shit to continue. This is another reason why I just cannot fucking believe that Reddit doesn't react. It's so fucked up that Reddit allows this and doesn't do anything.
But Ethan did eventually hear back from Reddit, although he wasn't very pleased with what they had to say.
We got a hold of someone at Reddit, and we told them about all the Snark stuff. It was a comms person, and they got back to us, and they said, well, you guys are harassing people also. You're harassing people, and they're harassing people, so I don't see the
it'd be nice if he
difference
actually
between
showed
your
an image of
community and
that.
their community.
And while it would be really funny if Reddit actually said that to him, I highly doubt that that's what Ethan was told. I imagine he was told something more like, this community is totally fine. They're not doing anything different than your own is. But this is where things started getting a little weird. Ethan didn't just disagree with Reddit's decisions. He started claiming that Reddit was conspiring against him to protect Snark.
I believe that Reddit is colluding with the moderators of this Snark community and actively protecting it.
I don't
And to
remember
his
him
credit,
saying
I'm
that,
sure
but
Ethan
I mean,
really
the clip
was
is
on
right
the
there.
verge of cracking this thing wide open.
Twitch has been ideologically captured, and the people in that company are using their terms of service selectively as a form of activism. And I feel that I'm getting the same treatment now from Reddit. Did you know that these two companies in San Francisco their headquarters are blocks away from each other? It's just interesting. It's
Wait,
just
what?
interesting
What companies?
because it shows they're blocks away from Reddit. Did you know that these two companies in San Francisco are getting
What two companies?
captured, and the people in that company are using their terms of service selectively as a form of activism. And I feel that I'm getting the same treatment now from Reddit. Did you know that these two companies in San Francisco their headquarters are blocks away from each other? It's just interesting. It's just interesting because it shows there's some culture happening in this tech space. I think that these people are all very similar minded.
First off, that isn't necessarily wrong. They're all like Silicon Valley tech bros, right? But that's also like probably like not exactly the right thing to take away from that. Oh well, these guys just think the same, so.
Just let him kill himself. I'll give him glucose instead.
What the fuck? Instead of giving a guy coke, I'm giving him glucose. Okay. Wait, take the fake drugs? Dude, what? Sure, whatever. All right, let's finish that sentence.
I think that's what this is telling me.
Right. But somehow this airtight narrative didn't gain quite as much traction as Ethan would like, so he started being somewhat openly dishonest
Yeah, it
about
just
it.
doesn't
For
really
instance,
mean
when Adam
anything.
McIntyre's snark community got taken down by Reddit, allegedly due to behaviors similar to the H3 snark page, Ethan took it as proof that Reddit is conspiring against him. But he prefers to just disregard the known fact that Adam's page didn't get removed due to any alleged behaviors, but rather because it was completely unmoderated, whereas H3 Snark has always had active moderators. Ethan is aware of this, by the way. He just chooses to believe something else.
It's hard for him to be honest. He lies a lot. He does.
In fact, there are often pretty decent explanations for why things on Reddit haven't gone Ethan's way, but rather than opening his eyes, everything only leads him to further believe that Reddit leadership must be snarkers themselves. That's right, it's a big Reddit conspiracy to harass Ethan Klein. That is literally what he believes.
I know that it's likely that one of the admins who's being paid by Reddit is participating and protecting it.
Ethan also started
here's the
claiming
thing,
that the
right?
coordination and organized harassment actually just happens in Discord servers.
Is
which
it
is why you won't find it on the
Ethan
subreddit
genuinely
itself.
believes this, or is
Fucking
Ethan
freaks
trying to
that are
maliciously
in
make a
Discord
narrative?
sharing on all these things.
Because on
these
one
people
hand,
can sign up without any info
it's
of their account.
way too dumb. Like, you cannot, like, for realsies believe that the entirety of Reddit is against you. That seems super just, like, conspiratorial and weird when Reddit has, like, much bigger things to worry about, much bigger communities to worry about than whether one, well, I'll say relatively niche, because most people know of Ethan Klein at the very least. You just have bigger things to worry about than Ethan's community. It's so odd. I just don't get it. How can you believe that the entirety of Reddit is poised against you? That just feels like a crazy person thing to say.
Most of their activities happening on Discord.
And it's kind of weird that he'd go that route anyway, because somehow Reddit is complicit in something truly horrific here, but simultaneously none of it is actually happening on Reddit, it's all happening somewhere else. But despite not having very much evidence, Ethan remained incredibly determined to push this harassment narrative. So determined, in fact, that he made the very classy decision to appropriate a woman's suicide to further his agenda against Snark.
Wait,
Michaela
what?
Raines, also known as Save a Fox, took her own
Let me
life
see the
suicide
tweet.
to
Apologies for the frequent post today. Ethan Klein's subreddit is now conflating the criticism he receives from the Snark subreddit with the recent of Michaela Raines, creator of Save a Fox Animal Rescue. The tragedy seems to only... I do remember that. That was super weird. I remember that when that happened. That was like weirdly fucked up of him. No idea why the fuck he did that.
further his agenda
I know
against Snark.
of reasons.
Michaela
I
Raines,
just
also known as
don't
Save a
choose
Fox, took her
that
own life
they
back
are
in June of
weird
last
and I don't
year.
want to
And
believe
Ethan,
them.
within 24 hours of it being announced,
It's
ran
just
to
so
Instagram
impossibly
to claim that
strange.
Snark was responsible. But Michaela's husband didn't cite her Snark community as contributing to her suicide. He rather said that the criticism Michaela faced was often from people she knew or people from other animal sanctuaries. Michaela's
like
Snark page was pretty inactive, with only 19
That's like the
total
Kiwi
posts in its
Farms
lifetime.
thing, right? A lot of people think that, I don't know if they think that way, but they believe that a couple of people on Kiwi Farms made, any particular person, really, take their own life. When in reality, that person even had like a message. I know one of the people specifically had a message saying that it had nothing to do with Kiwi Farms. It was entirely to do with real life issues. And it's so weird whenever there is so much evidence against that, you know? Like, you can have word for word saying, this is not the reason, this is not the cause. And people will still be weird about it.
Pretty awesome, innit?
She also, according to her husband, had a long history of being in and out of therapy with depression and various other mental ailments. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible that Michaela's snark page contributed to her distress, but this was obviously a deeply troubled person, and Ethan parading around her body for his own narrative purposes and chalking it all up to snark.
That is
can't
weird.
Even know that to be true.
That is
kind
very
of a disgusting
like,
thing
I don't
to
know,
do.
that's very
but despite
kind of
these
evil.
lies and conspiracy theories
Very
and his
evil.
appeals to Reddit, Ethan was unsuccessful in getting H3 snark removed.
This is not normal. This is fucking insane, unhinged behavior that is being explicitly sanctioned by Reddit continually. It's nauseating. It's so,
Not sanctioned.
so fucked up.
So he decided to escalate his tactics. Ethan hired an attorney to begin issuing copyright strikes against clips of the H3 podcast that were getting posted on their snark page. It's unknown exactly how many strikes were issued, but they went after quite a few, including some clips as short as 20 seconds long. Ethan has given various explanations for why he was trying to get these posts removed.
Me and my lawyer were extremely conservative about which posts qualified. The ones that I post, that I DMCA'd on that, were egregious.
At different times, he's claimed he was only targeting members-only content or posts that openly stated they were trying to steal views. But neither of these turned out to be true. Clips that didn't fit either of those parameters were getting struck also. Eventually, some of these snarkers were added to Ethan's current lawsuits against Hasan's orbiters, which we'll come back to later. But in these filings, we received expanded explanations for some of the DMCA takedown requests. And all of a sudden, the justifications included things such as posts that didn't have enough comments on them. Not a great reason. These
No
filings also
comments at
claim
the
that
time, but 130 upvotes. That's kind of crazy. That's the second takedown.
H3 was very purposeful with what they chose to strike, listing
The first DMCA, oh, well, I mean, he's probably going to read it anyway. The first DMCA was for the snark post. Ethan talks positively about Celebrity Poker's tour sponsors, a sports gambling app named Fliff. The post contains 2 comments. Dude, your flare is frying me, and the downfall is real. The post contained no further... This isn't defamation. This is just... What? You issued a DMCA takedown over that? Really? I remember, like, looking through some of the legal documents whenever I covered the initial thing with Denims, and I was thinking, like, I don't know if this justifies an actual legal case. And I just don't kind of like those people. And I think I was like a little bit taken in at the time with how much those people suck. Because they do kind of suck. But like, are they DMCA worthy? I don't know. There was definitely a little bit of hype at the time just because it was like novel that somebody would do this. But I think looking back on it, it's fun to like shove people down, but I don't think it was like a good idea.
just 7 examples with detailed explanations for each takedown. And in response to the idea that he was trying to silence his critics, Ethan would repeat this claim on stream, asserting that he had only struck a handful of clips from the subreddit.
And your dumb bitch ass at the time was saying I was silencing people, which makes no fucking sense because there's like 1,000 posts up there and we DMCA'd like 5 of them. But what they're referring to is just a DMCA. One of their posts.
That's stupid. That's very stupid of him to say. Because whenever you have like a large quantity of something and you know, don't want to go through the effort of dealing with every single individual person, right? What you do is you make an example out of a few people. You don't take on every single person. That's always been a thing. Because like, it happens with modders too, or it used to happen with like video game modders, I think in the early 2000s, as if a mod like outshone a game, companies were worried that you wouldn't move on to the next game. And so they issued takedowns even though there were like thousands of mods. You don't need to DMCA every single one, you just need to DMCA a few, and people will take it as an example not to do it again.
Of like the hundreds, if not thousands, got DMCA'd. And so the story is that I'm trying to silence free speech because one post of 1,000 got DMCA'd. Like I said, there's hundreds of posts, we removed maybe 5 at most.
But months earlier, when complaining about Reddit's inaction against Snark, Ethan had previously claimed to have successfully filed dozens of copyright strikes against them.
We've performed dozens of copyright strikes on the Snark subreddit. We have removed dozens of posts.
So is Ethan possibly lying to downplay how many claims claims were being filed. If he is, it might be because what Ethan was actually trying to do was get the subreddit banned as a result of excessive DMCA notices, something that he had seen work with other Snark subreddits before.
She told me that she was aware that there's Snark pages that will talk about me and that talk about her, whatever. And she was like, I'm gonna give you this number of someone who can take down your Snarks. These people will go around and they will copyright strike things on subreddits to get them all these violations that then they get removed. I'm pretty sure as well that's how, you know, Trisha Paytas got the Trishyland Reddit taken down.
But obviously that plan didn't work, so he started making public threats of legal action against members of H3 Snark. And I wanted to briefly point out the very funny way that he talks when he's addressing Snark. He really thinks he's that guy.
I will look for you. I will find you. And I will
sue you.
He's already been granted a subpoena to obtain the personal information of prominent H3 Snark members, which he claims is just for legitimate copyright purposes.
And he's threatening to dox them. It's not a dox, you dumb fuck. It's called a subpoena. Now, what happens to that information? I don't know. I literally just want to hold them accountable for copyright infringement. Court filings are all public. So if like their private information shows up there, I literally can't help it.
But if you're not trying to dox them, then why say things like this? I mean, he's just openly expressing here that his goal is, at least partially, to expose the identities of these snarkers.
Like anyone that participated in that sub should be humiliated, embarrassed, and exposed. If I was one of these people and had something to lose, who had, let's say, a good job or was part of an elite university, something like that, they would certainly.
Yeah, I don't know. He's been weirdly diabolical about
all
all
this. They all have quite a lot to lose, and I will be the one that makes them lose those things.
That is pretty explicit. I mean, just look at one of the letters from Ethan's attorney. Give us the identity of Snark moderators, or all of your personal info will be made public. And this letter was regarding a clip posted on H3 Snark that was 90 seconds long.
Okay, so like I think even now there is like a... I literally just had the word in my head and I forgot it. There is a stigma. There is a bit of a stigma against like any kind of legal action on YouTube. And I think that's honestly very fair, because in the early days of YouTube, there was a lot of like really bad legal action. I mean, Fine Bros is an easy thing to point to. And the one that was initially against Ethan Klein, that was, I believe even that one was like a defamation case. And so Ethan, like, look, I think Ethan with the fucking Library of Congress thing with Denims, Rogan, and Casey Tron, I don't know. There are definitely arguments to be made there from like a very, what's it called? Okay. Like almost like in a corporate way, it's like, okay, Ethan, you're flexing your muscles, you're seeing what can be done. Okay, this is weird, but I guess we'll live with this, even though you're being very odd and strange right now. And you know, people talked out against it, but again, people bought into the hype. I think I did.
Anything will help.
But this definitely feels going like way too far. And it feels like this guy who used to be beloved, and that's getting like brought over into now, because he did do some good things, or used to be funny or whatever, is now fucking like almost like a Fine Brothers comparison. It's just like, why are you doing this? This stuff seems pretty extreme, and at first I thought that the Snarker stuff was like a lot more serious than it is, because Ethan made it sound that way. And I guess if it turns out that, you know, the Snarkers were a part of the CPS calls or whatever, that would be a much more understandable like thing to get legality involved in, is literally just the investigation, the finding out of whether this is true or not. As it is now, it actually is kind of super weird.
It's obvious that his primary motivation is not really protecting his property. But you know how we can be sure? Ethan previously, not even that long ago, had opened up the H3 IP to everybody, and he even gave his blessing to people profiting off of his channel.
I am opening our IP to the world. If you want to cut up clips from the podcast, from our members live, from anything with me in it, go for it, man. Monetize it. I will not claim. I will not remove. I will not do
Oh,
anything.
shit.
I mean, to be fair, it's basically been my policy. I don't claim or remove anything really at all.
But now you're making it explicit.
Yeah.
He was openly encouraging people to monetize his property, even on YouTube.
We opened our IP, and there are
That is
starting
kinda
to be
crazy.
channels who are uploading content.
I started noticing.
And they're getting views, and I'm very happy.
But Redditors, who don't profit off of him at all, he has a massive problem with his content being shared there. And the only difference between these two situations, one supports H3, the other criticizes him. You can't blanket open up your IP and then claim infringement when you just don't like who's sharing it. Either it's protected or it's not.
I mean, that's
so when
true.
it comes to H3 Snark, Ethan seems to have abused DMCA as a guise to try to silence his critics. That's it. This whole Snark controversy is really interesting because when you zoom out, it kind of gives you a lot of perspective on Ethan's character, like how he stands staunchly against involving people's families in online drama.
The way that's super fucked and twisted about it is how they go after people's families.
Except when he does it, or how he hates defamation and considers it harassment.
One of them fabricated a post. That's defamation.
Except when he does it. Or how he thinks Snark is evil and should be wiped from the internet.
I'm against Snark subreddits. I stand opposed to all Snark subreddits.
Wow. Except when he uses it. Yeah, this is Ethan's web browser back
Wait,
during his
what?
fallout with Trisha Paytas. And you'll notice Ethan is a frequent visitor of
Trishyland.
Trisha's Snark subreddit.
Oh.
Ethan and the H3 crew are
What
known
the
to have been
fuck?
supporters and regular visitors of various Trisha Snark pages,
Fuck off.
including multiple named after their former podcast, Frenemies. The H3 podcast was actually remarkably public about being appreciative of Snark back when the target was somebody that they didn't like.
No
Frenemies
way.
too. Oh, you have to request to join? Well, I gotta request access now.
Love said he secured Frenemies 12. So
Okay.
We got, wait, Frenemies 12 is us?
yeah, we got
Let's go. Go to Frenemies 12, people. Since Frenemies 2 is closed.
Wait, so they
Frenemies 2
literally,
is like
so
home
they,
base.
they not only, oh, Olivia's there. That's sad. That's unbelievable. That's insane to me. He talks all this mad shit about Snark, but then he is like just totally happy to use it by himself, like even to the point where he is outright creating new Snark channels after the previous ones get banned just to keep doing it? That's delusional. How could you possibly continue going after Snark whenever you're literally, I mean, I don't know, maybe Trisha Paytas's wasn't nearly as bad, maybe it was in like much more good fun back then, but even then, this seems insane. Like, I don't know, this feels like it goes past hypocrisy in a way. That's kind of crazy.
You know what I mean?
Why have they done this?
The irony is that Ethan and Hila don't actually have a problem with Snark. In fact, when his own fans engage in the same behaviors that he accuses Snark of, he'll just pretend that it isn't happening.
It's a numbers game, okay? Some people, obviously, from our audience are going to be take it too far and be inappropriate and say horrible things. This is not my fan base. So them even trying to make it about
This is
our
not
fan
my
base
fan base.
is disingenuous, and it's a fucking lie.
This is slightly old data, but one of the most popular subreddits
data?
among people who also post an H3 subreddit is a makeup Snark page. And there's nothing wrong with that, because the thing is, Ethan is a controversial figure with millions of followers. He's been involved in countless dramas and public feuds with others, and at that scale, criticism is inevitable. Some of it is going to be harsh. Some people might cross lines. But that doesn't mean there's a massive organized campaign against you. It just means you're notable and there's a lot of eyeballs on you. And I don't know how to protect someone like Ethan from every isolated incident of harassment on the internet, but I know that the answer is not silencing all of your critics. Now, some of you might be thinking, but Kilo, didn't these people send CPS and skulls to his house? I don't blame Ethan for taking matters into his own hands. Well, let's see. In
Okay.
November of 2024, Ethan began threatening Reddit with legal action if he couldn't get H3 Snark banned from the website. In December, it was discovered that he had been weaponizing DMCA against them. In January, he finalized his plan to ultimately sue them for copyright infringement. Then in February, he began making vague threats of doxing and exposing the identities of the Snark moderators. And the CPS and Skulls incidents didn't happen until March.
Oh.
On March 7th of 2025, the H3 podcast went live, where Ethan and Hila would discuss a child protective services.
Can I hear the
visit to their
time on
house
that again?
morning
I heard
after
that.
an anonymous call that
I heard that he was going after CPS before. He was going after CPS. Jesus Christ, my brain is rotten. He was going after Snark before all this happened. That is kind of dead to rights in my opinion, that this is like his personal crusade, and this doesn't really have anything to do, well, nothing to do, but very little to do with how he thinks he was harmed.
That was placed a few days prior. The call was in response to a story Ethan told on this episode a few weeks earlier about his family having possibly contracted Giardia. After announcing what happened, Ethan followed up with a video on his main channel on March 10th, further discussing the CPS call, as well as angrily berating H3 Snark, Hasan, Bad and Banata, really anybody he could even remotely blame for the incident. He especially took issue with Denims, who he accused of encouraging her community to call CPS. The visit itself rightfully didn't translate to any long-term consequences.
Is Ethan said that thing about how, like, I can't possibly sue all of them, so I'm only suing the ones that I think I can. And again, it's like, I'm only making an example. It's really, he's only making an example out of them so that people stop fucking, like, making nasty posts about him. But then, he explicitly says that he's just making an example out of 10. No way, bro. That's actually insane. That is actually kind of insane. Wow. I kind of wish I connected the dots earlier, but I guess that's why I watch other people's videos and don't make my own.
For the Klein household, although Ethan maintains that this was a malicious and fraudulent attack on his family and that the call had no merit. He also claims that the caller impersonated somebody close to the Klein family to bolster the call's credibility.
Like when he first showed up, he's like, it's somebody that you know who made the report. And I'm like, no, okay. You could easily impersonate.
The CPS incident escalated Ethan's sense of victimhood in a pretty massive way, and he started lashing out at anyone he considered anywhere even close to responsible. One such person was Ian Joma, also known as iDubbbz. Ian is a former well-respected comedy creator turned not so well-respected failed event coordinator. He and Ethan used to occasionally collaborate on each other's channels and always appeared to maintain a positive relationship. But Ian and his wife Anissa over time also developed friendships with Hasan, Denims, and other similar creators. Because of these conflicting friendships, Ian largely avoided commenting on any of the Ethan and Hasan drama to this point. Obviously
Well, we probably skipped the section where he actually talked about the— oh, this is the CPS section. With how much went over in the Snarkifesto that was actually like new to me, I kind of do want to cover the CPS section, but I don't know if I have the time. But it's not just that; it's also that, you know, I'm sure he'll get to it, or if he hasn't already, because they skipped a few sections. Ethan, you know, did have leftovers with Hasan. Like, these were people all ostensibly in the same group.
To stay out of it and just do his pretty boring podcast with his wife. But after the CPS visit, Ian and Anissa staying out of things was no longer an option for Ethan. He accused them of being cowards for not speaking up to defend him from the attacks that were coming from people they're associated with. The couple reiterated on their podcast on March 11th that they wanted to stay out of the conflict, adding that they don't condone or endorse any type of harassment that Ethan received.
We don't condone harassment
We don't condone harassment of any kind.
Of any kind.
But Ethan's attacks on them continued, which led to iDubbbz releasing a pair of his famed content cop videos in April, with Ethan as the subject. These videos didn't get received very well, but I actually think there's a few good points in here, which we'll come back to in a second. For now,
yeah, I think when I covered it, I was like,
the CPS call
there could be good points, it just goes in the wrong direction.
Narrative that Ethan is selling. Anyone who criticizes Ethan's behavior, who questions his motivations,
maybe I was less generous than I remember
for his claims, all he or any H3 fans have to say to them is, they tried to take his kids away, and the conversation gets shut down. But the problem with the way that people have framed this whole CPS thing is that it's essentially given Ethan this free pass to just say or do whatever he wants in response, no matter how dishonest it is. Let's get a sense of how CPS got called on the Klein household. Here's the clip that got shared around.
Olive has Giardia, which is it's a bacterial
this was very dumb
in the intestines that makes you have diarrhea. Olive has this. Yeah, she came to us with
horrifically stupid of Ethan to overshare all this shit.
So she has Giardia, so we have her on an antibiotic, but we had to wait until Monday, which is today. We just got it today. Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has Giardia.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
And now Ela has Giardia.
Shut. For real?
Didn't they end up not having Giardia at all?
This morning I had diarrhea.
Oh my god.
What can I do to not get it? Because I'm not trying to get it.
It's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop.
Okay, so Ethan says in this clip that his dog has Giardia, that his infant son has Giardia, and that his wife has Giardia. He then immediately says that it's difficult to contract, and in order to get sick, you would have to ingest his shit. So, I mean, the idea that Ethan could have painted a picture for somebody here of a baby crawling around, putting dog shit in its mouth, it's really not like the craziest thing in the world. Like, it does kind of sound like that.
Olive has Giardia. She had diarrhea. Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. It's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop. His whole room was just wafting and the foulest diarrhea smell. Although meanwhile, he is covered in low viscosity diarrhea. No, you guys will not be getting Giardia. It's not like that.
So yeah, Ethan told this story about parasites and dogs and babies being covered in shit, and his whole house smelling like flowing, frothy diarrhea. And yeah, it's just disgusting. So if you heard that story and took it at face value, you could understandably have come away from it with a little bit of concern. So obviously somebody called CPS expressing concern about the sanitary conditions of the Klein household. Now, before we go any further, the obvious question is, was the CPS call malicious harassment or genuine concern? And the answer to that question is, we don't know. I don't know, you don't know, and Ethan doesn't know.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
Or it could have been someone being reckless or overzealous. But it also could have been someone who heard the story and genuinely believed the kids were in an unsanitary or unhealthy environment. And the thing is that ultimately, it doesn't actually matter whether the report was made in good or bad faith. Even if the Kleins are the victims of harassment here, they're still responsible for how they respond to it. And Ethan, despite having no idea who placed the call or what their intentions were, has accepted no responsibility for himself, lied about what happened, and dishonestly exploited the entire situation. One of the better points from Ian's content cop videos is that Ethan tends to abdicate any responsibility he has in protecting himself online, and he instead expects the world to protect him.
Misspeak, he said. What did he say?
From Ian's content cop videos is that Ethan tends to abdicate any
he said abdicate,
he
right?
has
Never mind.
in protecting himself online, and he instead expects the world to protect him.
Now, what Ethan does, instead of taking any responsibility for sharing too much on his live stream, is that he decides to attack specific creators like Denims and say she was the source of the CPS call. Part of my criticisms of Ethan initially was the openness. I think it's a problem that you were that open, Ethan.
And that's just true. Everyone kind of understands that the more about yourself that you put out there, the more you're exposing to the many insane people that exist on the internet.
Yeah, that's
Ethan
true.
Seems to understand.
I mean, that's the
this.
thing that a
He
lot of
tries to
streamers
limit
fuck
sharing
up is
photos
they
of his
talk
kids
about
online,
themselves way too much.
specifically for that reason.
I've literally given Ethan Klein credit for not showing photos of his kids. I think it is actually very cool of him to try his best to not have his kids in photos, in videos.
But when it comes to the CPS visit, Ethan has spent the months since it happened, lashing out at Reddit, other creators, anybody who he can get away with trying to hold responsible. And he has not for 1 second stopped and examined how he might have been responsible. Never has he said, man, I told that story in kind of a stupid way. No, maybe I shouldn't talk about my kids' medical conditions in front of thousands of people.
Did he
Nothing.
not?
I mean, Ethan spent almost the entire year leading up to the CPS visit complaining about the internet and how many crazy
I
haters
do
he
feel
has.
like
He
recently,
even told the Giardia story in an episode.
maybe even after this video came out, which maybe he even watched it then, he did say that he overshared. I feel like I've heard that. Maybe I'm probably, I don't know. I think I might be wrong. I feel like he said that, but I don't know. I certainly couldn't pull up the clip because I only watch Ethan through other people.
Episode where he was addressing those people. Idubs also pointed out that there were members of H3's own audience watching the story live who were making comments about the Klein household being covered in shit. And the point of that shouldn't be to say that one of them might have called CPS. The point is that even Ethan's own fans thought the story sounded a little crazy. So what do you think the people who are not your fans are gonna hear? You know, the ones that the episode was literally about, that Ethan must have known would eventually see it. Personally, I just don't give Ethan a lifetime pass for saying whatever he wants all the time. At some point, you are somewhat responsible for protecting yourself on the internet. And when people say things like this,
I think it's a problem that you were that open, Ethan.
They're not saying that Ethan is solely to blame. They're just saying he's acting like a moron. But Ethan's been given the green light by everybody to not only avoid any responsibility for himself, but also just lie about what happened. His claim is basically this. He told the Giardia story on stream in February. A few weeks later, Bad Banana published this video about it, where he maliciously lies and twists the story to make Ethan look bad. After that, Denims reacted to Bad Banana's video on her stream, but she didn't push back at it enough and spread his lies to her community. Her chat responded negatively to these lies, and then almost all of them started suggesting that CPS needed to be called. Denims did not moderate or discourage this behavior, and then one of her viewers must have called CPS. That's more or less Ethan's story. He calls this.
I was about to go over like this is a complete change up. Is this describing him?
I explained it on the podcast, but the truth of the matter is it's all a lie.
So let's examine this narrative, and let's start with who he blames most directly for the CPS visit.
Denims endorses this clearly, as you can see, that it seems like she's directly responsible for CPS coming to my house in the morning.
But what did Denims actually do? Well, she watched this video on stream, and yeah, she expressed concern about what she was hearing. But expressing concern about something you hear is not the same as a call to action. It's not even the same as endorsing that action. Denims doesn't even mention CPS at any point during her coverage, and she never suggests a call to action of any kind. She just says the story is concerning and that parasites can be dangerous for infants.
I mean, much like many other illnesses, it's very, very, very dangerous when infants.
Yeah, that's actually kind of just like a normal reaction to
technically
Ethan's
true,
video.
But the point is that you can question somebody's parenting and not necessarily be saying that you think they deserve to have their kids taken away. And that's an important distinction, because after Denims threatened to sue Ethan for defamation, he started shifting the goalposts quite a bit.
I acknowledged Denims had denounced herself or anyone in her community making contact with CPS. And I do not believe Denims made a direct call to action to her audience to contact CPS, obviously, right?
Okay, so now we've moved on from this.
Denims endorses this. She's directly responsible.
And the claim is now that she essentially primed her community
She's directly responsible.
The point is not that you instructed your audience to contact CPS. The point is that you propagated the false statements that led to this incident. You turned a blind eye to your chat, urging people to contact CPS. His kids crawl around and eat shit, and her whole entire chat saying to call CPS.
In his video about the CPS call, Ethan shows a cutout of Denims' chat during her coverage of the Giardia story. The cutout shows numerous chatters expressing concerns about the client's kids, with some mentioning CPS. The way Ethan presents this is as though Denims' chat was universally responding this way.
Notice the chat.
He does present that. I always thought that was kind of maliciously.
Call CPS. Call child endangerment.
Maybe not maliciously.
Social services, bro, needs to
because somebody could have prepared that for him.
Child endangerment,
but that's the case that his
I'll let the chat play for you, but you can see
crew
just
is like
how
lying to
this
him.
Community is. And
that was
again,
a weird.
This is Denims' chat, and it's pretty much 100% of the comments saying call CPS.
100%.
What Ethan is showing here is in fact not 100% of the chat. This is a curated selection of chat messages that Ethan got from this Reddit post. In her response, Denims did the math. In between the first and last of the 65 messages that Ethan showed in his video, Denims had almost 1,000 messages sent in her chat.
Holy shit.
The messages Ethan showed as evidence of her entire community being whipped up into a frenzy were only 7% of the messages sent during her coverage. And I also wanted to point out that several of the comments in that cutout, they don't even have anything to do with CPS, and they're very similar to a lot of messages from Ethan's own chat during the Giardia story. So it would be pretty dishonest to include these as evidence of wrongdoing, meaning the actual total of CPS-related messages in Denims' chat is even lower than this. But Ethan doubles down on this outright false presentation the next day.
I'm not exaggerating when I say literally every comment is call CPS.
Yeah, no shit. It's edited. I don't know if Ethan knew this was an edited selection.
Yeah, that's like the best case situation is if maybe he didn't
presented it as
know that
and used it to bolster
but
his
even
side
then,
of the story. And he tried to stand on it when he got challenged.
when you're
I made a good point. You said
when you're dealing with something so serious and you're taking such serious action,
what about the top right?
you gotta be way more careful.
I think when you full screen it,
thoughtful,
this is an edit. It's a cutout of the full chat. It's just enlarged.
Oh, really?
Over the screen, yeah.
You know what? We'll just make it
So he
all
says
up.
it's a cutout. What's the fuck?
We'll make it up.
So yeah, this was nowhere near her whole chat. But even if Ethan thinks that Denims still should have moderated better, which I can probably agree with, there's a pretty big difference between a failure to moderate and being causally responsible for any subsequent action. Denims does have an obligation to try to mitigate harm, but failing to fulfill that obligation doesn't mean that she caused the CPS call. Denims didn't cause the call, someone else did. So when it comes to responsibility, what's really left? Well, some people claim that Bad Banana is notoriously bad faith and malicious, so Denim shouldn't have platformed him in the first place. But I mean, we're just getting so far away from any true culpability here. Like, what, Denims is responsible for the call because she watched a video from a guy who might be known to lie, and then a tiny portion of her chat responded to the lies, and Denims didn't delete every single one of them, and then days later the call gets placed, which could have been anybody, but we just assumed that it was Denim's fault because, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, is this really the standard of responsibility that we're going to hold people to? At that point, Denim's is
I
so
always thought
detached
the
from
thing
action of calling
was, maybe
CPS
this is me
itself.
taking it a bit too, implications more than like the literal wording. That Denims was like partly responsible for it because it could have been one of her chatters that made the call, and that she didn't disavow enough. So therefore, it like aided and abetted in the call being made, but wasn't her watching the video after the call was made anyway? I don't know. It always seemed like one of the weaker parts of the story. And the weird conflation with her aiding and abetting the call. I'm not sure, that's certainly not the legal way to put it, but whatever. Was almost like a partial justification for the Library of Congress copyright strike. And it's like, well, these are like completely separate things. Just like, why? What does this have to do with anything? This felt very odd.
It doesn't really seem fair to blame her for it. But you know what? Let's accept Ethan's entire premise here. Let's say Denims is responsible for not moderating enough and for platforming these harmful lies without pushing back. What are the supposed lies? What does Ethan claim Bad Empanada said that was false?
Denims uncritically, that's you, played a clip of George Janitis, the human STD, a person whose Denim knows is clearly biased against me and a prolific spreader of misinformation. In the video Denims watched, George Janitis, the human STD, claims that there was dog shit all over my home, that I just leave it on the floor.
Okay, so first supposed lie, and we have to point out that again, this is something that Ethan's own audience intuited during the Giardia story. Ethan also has a documented history of talking about having dog poop in the house.
My dogs are not extraordinarily trained, right? They run around, they play a lot, and sometimes, especially the little dogs who go potty inside. So admittedly, my dogs are not the best trained, right? I admit that. You think my fruit is bringing...
I think you're half correct. It's half the fruit, and the other half is the dog shitting.
Love Shredder and Alfredo. I do, but I've stepped in their shit multiple times.
How many times do we get poop inside? What's going on here?
Almost every day that they're here.
It was a delivery guy. He stepped in shit.
But
Holy shit.
Oh my god.
I stepped in shit and tracked it all over.
He took a super, how do you call it? Like strings, you know, from one of the dogs. I was just passing my foot over it and felt a bump. It's old, by the way. It's hard.
So I'm sorry, it's defamatory to suggest that your house was covered in dog poop? Okay, moving on.
That my house is just covered in dog shit. My kids crawl around in dog shit.
You kind of made it sound like that.
Olive has Giardia. She had diarrhea. Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age.
Okay, next.
He intimates that my kids either eat dog shit or get in contact with it with their hands.
No, actually,
I mean, that's
you
like
intimated that.
literally what Ethan said, yeah. What the fuck?
So Olive chews everywhere. She's everywhere. So, Sonny, it makes sense why he got it. You have to ingest my poop.
That is literally you saying that if Sonny had Giardia, he would have gotten it from contact with poop-contaminated surfaces.
That my children contracted a parasite called Giardia from the dog shit that is all over my house.
Okay, even if the dog poop wasn't literally all over his house, Ethan consistently likes to pretend that it's an evil snark narrative that his child did contract Giardia.
It actually turns out when we got all of the poop tests back, he never had Giardia even, and that's
yeah,
why
but
they called
he's
CPS.
the one who said that.
Because my 10-month-old baby had diarrhea. Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has Giardia.
So I'm just kind of struggling here. Where are the
Hila had it
defamatory
too.
lies?
She believes his lies, his defamatory statements. You did not disavow, you did not disclose the credibility of Bad Empanada. You uncritically platformed and agreed with the statements that I was putting my kids in danger.
We're talking about CPS, which anyways, to begin with, one, I don't condone. Two, I've never condoned
I mean,
it,
like,
and you will
look,
not be
it's
able
like
to find
really
a clip of me
oversharing.
saying, yes, we should
You can't
do
blame
this,"
people
because it
for
doesn't exist.
criticizing your oversharing or even being worried about you because you're oversharing a negative
I think
thing.
calling CPS over
That is
something
kinda
like this
crazy.
was pretty crazy, and I think he's probably a perfectly fine dad. But that being said, the malicious lies that his entire victim narrative revolves around are just things that he himself said. And this is what Ethan does. He puts things out there
Well,
himself.
I don't
and then
know.
if you use them against him,
I'll be
he
real.
just calls you a liar. He makes you
And maybe Ethan will come after me for saying this. Ethan kind of does make it sound like his house is not, like, pleasant. And it's weird because, like, I'm pretty sure he has cleaners. He has, like, servants who, like, clean the lawn, like, maintain the lawn, the hedges, water it because he's in California. He has, like, maids or whatever. Probably. I imagine he does. Because he owns probably, like, a pretty big house. Or maybe Hila cleans it. I don't know. Maybe now, because their viewership has steadily declined. But I don't know. With all of the stories that Ethan tells, it feels like sometimes it's not the cleanest place. I'll leave it at that.
uncomfortable with his jokes, and then when you complain about it, he says you're just trying to ruin his life. He spends months expressing incendiary political opinions, and then when you criticize him, he just says that you're probably a racist. He fumbles a story about his family's medical conditions, and then calls you a liar for repeating it back to him. Ultimately, one person is responsible for the CPS call. Not Hasan, not Denims, not Reddit. One random person that Ethan will likely never identify because CPS calls are anonymous. But notice how this incident's been used. Suddenly, everyone who criticizes Ethan is responsible for trying to take his kids. Same thing with the skulls. One unhinged person is now proof of a coordinated attack. And this very convenient framing is deliberate. Ethan's been going after Hasan, Snark, and anyone else in his crosshairs for months, but I don't like what they said about me doesn't play quite as well as they tried to hurt my family. So now every grudge that he already had gets filtered through these incidents.
Okay.
Remember that Ethan was already going after all these people. The CPS and Skulls incidents just gave him the justification he needed to escalate. On June 19th.
Okay, so I've covered that before. These sections are fairly short. Do you want to cover the Nick Diora section? That one's most interesting to me, so I'll do that now. And if I have time, I'll do Cameron and Willie.
Hasan Piker is a genuine douchebag, extremely unintelligent, probably as politically illiterate as me on most things, and I literally know nothing. I'm a complete fucking normie who doesn't care about politics.
Nicholas Diorio is the owner of a pair of mid-sized commentary YouTube channels. His following is somewhere around 150,000 people, and he's known for covering new online dramas and his Ultimate Rape Review segment.
I'm the host of Ultimate Rape Review.
Yeah, Pete. Nick has been involved in the commentary genre for almost a decade. He's been closely associated with figures like Tommy C, Turkey Tom, Willie Mac, and other longtime contributors to online drama coverage. He's not the biggest name, but he is well established, and he's seen as somebody with credibility in these circles. And part of that is because historically, Nick has always positioned himself as being somebody with principles. He was always one of the most outspoken creators about things like targeting sponsors.
Attacking YouTube sponsors is generally like a negative thing to do. Attacking sponsors, doxing, like there's a handbook of things like you just can't do. I'm not a supporter of targeting anyone's revenue. I think it can damage the entire landscape.
Or abusing copyright.
There's also the issue regarding rapid copyright abuse on the platform that YouTube has done nothing about. Chris has been ban-evading and breaking TOS through multiple false copyright strikes. YouTubers who abuse built-in support systems to silence creators who are critical of them are the worst of the worst.
And defending free speech.
Oh, what's that? The Jeff Holiday? Apparently, Jeff takes a holiday from free speech. He locked replies and attempted to silence criticism. I have no fucking problem with anybody being a leftist, as long as you don't try to infringe upon my free speech.
So because of that outspokenness and his proximity to other large creators, Nick was always a somewhat prominent voice, helping enforce the core standards for his corner of the internet. However, recently, Nicholas has pivoted to covering almost exclusively Ethan Klein and his enemies, or to put it more specifically, sucking Ethan Klein's balls for 25 hours a week.
What I think—
No, he should have said the fucking chud line. Maybe that would have been a bit too much, but sucking the shekels out. So with the sponsors, at least, I know he was uncomfortable with Ethan going after the sponsors at first, at least. I don't know about after, but at first he was uncomfortable with going after the sponsors whenever they did the Zionist to Habibi tier list. I think that uncomfortability kind of dropped. And then I will say, I mean, that's the reason I haven't been watching Nick too much lately, is pretty much because it feels very samey. I'll watch him when he goes on EFAP. That's fine. Or talks about Boogie or whatever. But the EHD, I'm EHD'd out.
I think Ethan should do
EHDI.
is he should use the GoFundMe
We talked about
money from
D
the
more, that would be
lawsuits
fine,
to buy
but-
all of these things. I think he should take all that money and then buy Anissa's house. If everybody can see that what Ethan is doing is so fucked up, then why are you guys getting so much hate? Ladies and gentlemen, Ethan Klein has confirmed that his motion to subpoena Reddit and Discord was granted. Ooh.
His relentless positive coverage eventually got him noticed by the Kleins themselves.
I love Nicholas Diorio. I'll say it. I've been watching your content. I think you're a very funny guy.
And I feel like your coverage has been really good on topics that I end up watching. Like you're good with research.
He's seen consistent growth in subscribers, likely from H3 viewers, ever since he shifted his focus.
Holy shit.
And as a result, Nick has been cemented as Ethan Klein's #1 lieutenant, his top guy. He is one of the largest pro-Ethan,
Well,
anti-Hasan
it is
mouthpieces
kind
on
of funny
YouTube.
because I
And
think like less than a week. I mean, this was only made about just over a week ago. He criticized Ethan for going after iDubbbz, and it's like, and Ethan was like, "Look, I know you're the Pope, but we're gonna be seeing some gray smoke soon." And that was like, I feel like that was a little jab of like, getting on my bad side, Nick. I don't know. With Ethan, it's weird because some stuff is obviously a joke, and other stuff is like, well, especially because of like a lot of the will he sue this guy, won't he sue this guy, the situation with the Russian girl where he's like weirdly abrasive towards this black guy and his Russian girlfriend at the poker game. It's like, I don't know if he's joking or not anymore. That one really fucked me up because that seemed like a genuine interaction on Ethan's part as he went in with an idea of this person, was like very abrasive. I mean, he's trying to be funny, but he could not course correct at all. And despite essentially all of the jokes being shut down, he kept going. And it's not the exact same, but it's within the realm, and so it makes me unsure, if that makes sense.
While I'm never one to begrudge somebody making some money, today what we are interested in is what he's had to sacrifice to get it. Nick has become somewhat representative of what it means to be afflicted with the Hasan BAD virus. Unlike some of the other subjects of this video, Nick is in fact not some kind of rapist or pedophile, at least not that I'm aware of. But he is every bit as dishonest as the rest of these guys, and in a lot of ways, he's worse. You see, Nick has spent the last several years carefully fine-tuning a perfect system for lying.
Generally disagree, but I am open to hearing what people say. I want to see what he has to say. I don't think he's a liar. I think he does have... I think some of his opinions have changed. Nick used to be potentially non-binary. But I want to see, like, I'm open to it. Let's see what he has to say.
A system where he can be as dishonest as he needs to be, use it to his benefit, and avoid almost any consequences. It's a process that, if followed to a T, can lead to massive profit at the cost of your dignity, an exchange that Nick happens to be perfectly happy with. So let's walk through, step by step, exactly how Nicholas Diorio deceives his audience, protects his income, and lies directly to your face.
I can't wait to disagree with Ethan Klein again, because I know that he's principled and he actually gives a fuck about what he's saying.
This is the Nicky D system.
Look, for what it's worth, even if you disagree with the guy, the editing on this is
story breaks.
Awesome.
It's a story that on its face doesn't look very good for Ethan Klein. Ethan is accused of falsely copyright striking numerous clips on the H3 Snark subreddit. At best, Ethan is striking clips that he doesn't have great reason to, and at worst, he's trying to flood the subreddit with copyright notices to try to trigger an automatic ban. Nicholas Diorio has been covering all things Ethan Klein and even Snark for months, so he definitely sees things like this when they pop up, and we do know that he is specifically aware of this story.
I mean, he has copyright struck a literal subreddit. I wouldn't put it past him at all. What the fuck, dude?
But Nick also knows that this story is a problem, because if he covers it honestly, it might involve criticizing Ethan. And if he criticizes Ethan, he could be risking his new association with H3. So Nick considers his options and decides that the best course of action is step 1. Neglect. Simply neglect to cover stories that are unfavorable to Ethan Klein. If you don't talk about it, you don't have to take a position on it. And if you don't take a position on it, nobody can hold you accountable for having the wrong one. Sure, people might expect you to have strong opinions about somebody abusing DMCA.
YouTubers who abuse built-in support systems, multiple false copyright strikes, the issue regarding rapid copyright abuse on the platform.
But that's their problem. Nobody controls your content. You don't have to cover anything.
And people are like, well, Nick, if you go by your principles, you defend these people. My principles don't say I ever have to cover anything on YouTube. They just say that's my principle. I can just go, yeah, dude, I think that this lawsuit is kind of dumb, and then cover something else that day if that's how I really feel. I don't have to defend you. I'm not going to.
See? You can keep talking about Hasan and Snark and H3. You just skip the parts that make Ethan look bad. And that is Nick's preferred way of navigating anything that paints Ethan in a negative light. It's clean. It's safe. Remember when Ethan used Michaela Rain's warm body as a prop for his anti-Snark campaign? Nick, to this day, has never fully covered that story, despite indicating in passing that he disagreed with what Ethan did.
Save a Fox killed herself.
All right, that's about what I remember too about
crazy.
what's happening.
Yeah, I completely disagree.
I guess I do agree with the idea that Nick should have covered it more. Yeah, that's true.
Reddit does nothing.
And that was it. He avoided ever saying anything about Ethan directly, which is also what he did with the DMCA story for months. But avoidance kind of has a shelf life. You can't just do it forever. Eventually, something will come up on stream that you can't just look away from. And when that happens, Nick proceeds to step 2. Ignorance. Nick is streaming. He's covering Ethan or iDubbbz and probably making some kind of a penis joke.
When he said discipline, for some reason I thought he was gonna be like my dick. It sounds like they're talking about like their fucking cock, which is iconically the size of iDubbbz's penis. This guy's trying to suck his own dick. Get on your knees and suck dick. Cradle their balls, cluck my own cock. Suck my cock. Penis. 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 Penis.
Jesus. Anyway,
that was especially good editing because you can tell that they're all from different streams, or at the very least from different time periods, because he's using different wigglers.
Thing Nick has been trying to avoid, but he's already been doing that for quite a while. He can't make it obvious that he's been hiding from a story, but thankfully he still doesn't really need to say anything bad about Ethan.
I mean, it's hard to disagree with that when Nick refuses to cover this video. Smaggle is begging him. Boblax got banned for begging him, and then Smaggle unbanned Boblax. I think Kilo might even be a banned word in his chat now. It's just that is a little hard to disagree with, at least in this particular instance. But I do think he hasn't been covering the fullest extent of things.
He can simply choose to remain ignorant about the topic. Easy. You haven't looked into it. You don't know enough yet. You're still waiting on more information. Let's go to July of last year. Nick is reacting to this video by Paige Christie about Ethan's war on H3 Snark. Note that this is 7 months after the DMCA story originally
there
became
have
public.
been situations where Nick will actually like skip through a video. I remember one with Willie Mack. He didn't want to cover like a Queeman or Augie disagreement, and so he skipped it, and I was like, what the fuck?
coverage of the situation to this point.
But the rumor was he was striking people who were doing market replacement type content where it's like intentionally pushing views away from original content. So that was all that I'd said, was if that's the case, that's probably like fine. And again, I was waiting for a formal video to break this down, or I was waiting for Ethan to announce a lawsuit. We mentioned this like fucking multiple times. I was waiting to see what would actually get taken down.
Okay, but the problem here is that this was a breakdown video. The breakdown video is on screen right now. The documentation from Ethan's own attorneys is publicly available in that video, along with some examples of what was getting struck. But does Nick take the few minutes he would need to learn about that information? No. In fact, he never even reacted to this video. He only pulled up this small snippet while covering a completely different topic, and Nick made sure the whole time to performatively remind his viewers how little he wanted to watch Paige's video.
I hope they all find employment soon. Paige Christie. You escaped being a segment a couple of months ago, Paige Christie. Did you make a snark defense video that we never actually got around to watch? This one. I got 2 seconds. You can tell I got 2 seconds into it.
It's pretty unsurprising to me that Paige escaped becoming a segment on Nick's channel. You see, in situations like this, Nick isn't actually waiting on more information. He's waiting for the story to go away. Sometimes he'll be scrolling around on stream, and Nick might accidentally stumble upon some of that information that he's supposedly waiting on.
Okay. Do this or get sued, your only option to avoid litigation. You provide our office with all correspondence you had with the moderators of H3 Snark. Oh, so I guess this is like, I guess this is happening now. This is happening, the H3 Snark lawsuit.
Uh-oh, that letter looks kind of bad for Ethan, doesn't it? How will Nick respond?
Keep in mind that federal court filings are public. Anyone performing a simple Google search on you, let alone background check, will discover this information. You have until March 25th, 2025 at 5 p.m. to agree to these terms. So I don't know when this was sent. Noah Samson made a community.
He just
skips past it.
No curiosity, no interest in learning more about it. We just move on. He's choosing to remain ignorant about the story. Going back to Michaela Reigns, this was his playbook also.
Next stream literally wasn't about
that. I feel like there's a ton of misinformation coming out about it.
I think maybe that's something I would like, I guess, more sourcing on. Is that specific part is like, what stream date was this? I mean, obviously it's, what did he say? It's July 24 or December 24? Was either at the middle of the end of 24. But I don't think that Nick ever did do a video on that, or if it was like unavoidable.
This was related to a snark. Apparently the husband's saying it has other, I don't know, a lot of people are making huge sweeping assessments based off this person's suicide.
A lot of people? Like who, Nick? And that's bad, right, Nick?
I'm not gonna sit here and speculate on it.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of bad.
Realistically, I'm not gonna delve super deep into an unrelated story to try to investigate on how she died. So that's my stance on that position. What else do we got here?
It's not an unrelated story. It's part of Ethan's entire justification for trying to eliminate snark communities from the internet. This is something Nick has been agreeing with and pushing for months. But because Ethan is the one making the claims about Michaela's death, he all of a sudden doesn't have enough information. We just don't know. I'm not going to speculate. It's not even relevant. This stuff works pretty well on a lot of people. Between these first two steps, Nick can generally do extremely one-sided coverage and cater to a very specific audience without much worry about anybody caring or maybe even noticing. Except when they do. Eventually, people do start noticing, and when they do, Nick moves to step 3. Contingency. People are starting to notice. Something's off. They're watching Nick's coverage, and they're thinking, huh, this guy never criticizes Ethan. It's almost like he's sweeping, which is a suggestion that Nick doesn't take too kindly to.
The big sweep might be on.
So this guy stuck a dagger right into my neck the minute we stopped
talking.
Yeah,
I covered this. This was like I think this was a huge fumble for Nick.
So I'm gonna like rape you in the ass on this one.
You see, Nick works pretty hard at trying to present himself as the guy who always has the correct take. He can't really have people calling his credibility or honesty into question.
Commentary Civil War. Nick dropped the nuke. He got caught in his own backblast. It was bad. It was a terrible fucking response. I don't know what pushed him to do that, but I think that was like probably one of the worst things Nick has done, is the whole like cutting off of Chud Logic in the way that he did it, especially like if they just drifted apart, it would have been fine. But it was such a clear cutoff that was so, like, he put it so violently too. It's like, he stabbed me in the neck, he stabbed me in the back, and it's like, dude, he just said that he wasn't comfortable being like so heavily associated anymore, and he felt like you guys were drifting apart for a while. He had disagreements, but he didn't want to bring them up with you, and if he did, he wanted it to be public. I mean, he didn't say that to Nick. That's what I think he said ended up after. But so weird.
Not just because he needs to protect his brand, but also because he's extremely sensitive. So he does what any good liar does when they start feeling pressure. He starts making sure that he has a way out, a contingency plan. The trick is knowing when to do it. You don't just criticize Ethan at random. You wait for a moment where it's easy and safe to appear critical. Something minor, a slight disagreement or a half criticism, anything you can have on record to point to so you can say that you're impartial. To this point, Nick has neglected to cover the DMCA story, as well as the lawsuit against Stage 3 Snark, and he's also chosen to remain ignorant about the details.
I haven't covered two things with Ethan Klein.
I'm not sure that's entirely true. I swear I would have to find the stream, and I'm not a member. I swear Nick has covered the Snark law. Maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's just covered the Denims and Caseytron and Frogid lawsuit stuff. But I swear he's covered some of the Snark stuff. At the very least, I don't think it was super in-depth. Not that the other ones are particularly in-depth. He's not a lawyer, but I don't think he covered it to the same extent nearly as much. But maybe I am thinking of that clip he showed earlier.
There's the two things I haven't really covered. One being the lawsuit against the Snark subreddits.
But he also knows that the story is not just going to go away. So at some point along the way, he starts hedging.
Twitch streamers have been DMCAing stream.
Dude, what is this fucking Wiggler? Why are you? Oh, is this supposed to be like demon mode, Nick?
Streamable links and Reddit posts for like a decade. It was extremely common for them to be striking clips. And no, it's not cool. We didn't think it was cool when Dark Viper struck the clip of him getting mad at Among Us. When you're just doing 30-second clips, 40-second clips, and if that was what Ethan was striking down, if they weren't supposed to be market substitutes for segments like don't give the stream the view, watch it here, yeah, I mean, that's kind of shitty, that's kind of cringy.
For Nick, this type of statement is an escape hatch. It's a hypothetical criticism where he doesn't actually commit to anything. If that's what Ethan was doing, it would be kind of cringy. Like he's not actually giving his opinion on the topic, but the statement is on the record now. If anyone accuses Nick of sweeping for Ethan, he now has this clip he can point to and say, see, I did disagree with Ethan all along. He did the same thing when Ethan went after sponsors, something Nick has loudly opposed for years.
I'm not a supporter of targeting anyone's revenue. I think it can damage the entire landscape.
But listen to Nick's attitude on this behavior now.
I'm not in favor of attacking sponsors. I haven't used my audience specifically to go push this further like that. I don't like that stuff. Realistically, there's not much of a way to hold Twitch to account. The weird double standard that Hasan gets for all of his friends, this is a corrupt platform, and I think it does need to be destroyed. That's my personal opinion. I don't agree with Dan Saltman's methods to target sponsors the way that he has. I agree a bit more with the way that Ethan did it because he was targeting TwitchCon, going over like the panel that they approved. But like, this site was always going to have an adpocalypse. This was happening either way.
It's this weird half condemnation where he presents like he still has his older, more principled position.
I'm not in favor of attacking sponsors,
but literally everything else he says goes against it.
This is a corrupt platform, and I think it does need to be destroyed. This was happening either way.
You're not against targeting sponsors, Nick. You're supporting it. You're just playing both sides so you can defend yourself no matter what.
So I guess my only thing with this is that I think it's potentially more of like a cultural thing, and Twitch isn't viewed as part of the culture. Because on YouTube, people have gone through all of this stuff, and I was thinking about it because I watch a guy called Ahogwa FPS every now and then, and he managed to get a system going where he was able to do multiple audio sources and have them go to one output stream but not the other. And so he's playing like fucking Metallica and Pantera and whatever fucking metal music he listens to. Probably not those. To Twitch, because Twitch doesn't have nearly as strict of a copyright system. I believe Twitch doesn't copyright strike live videos. They might do it now, but at the time they didn't. But they will strike VODs. So there's that, I guess. While on YouTube, everything is like overly struck, and it feels like almost like an overly strict system. And so there's like this weird YouTuber, like half jealousy, half legal correctness in a way, where it's much more limited here. And so YouTubers hate Twitch people for that. Mouth noises. Sorry. My mouth is dry. I should go get a Coke. But that's just like one example of the cultural differences. And so Nick might not view that going after sponsors on a different platform is that bad, because that's a separate culture. That's a separate ethnicity of people. While going after sponsors on YouTube is not okay. But it's also because YouTube doesn't interact with its people nearly as much as Twitch does. Twitch is throwing like a whole convention. They're throwing like celebrations for different people. They're hosting specific small streamers to have events or whatever. While YouTube, whenever they throw an event, it's like random celebrities or the biggest of the big people, and having like either they're just like forgetting to represent some of the bigger faces. Like YouTube Rewind not having like PewDiePie or Markiplier or whatever the fuck. Or Keemstar. But it's like this understanding of YouTube that doesn't seem to be understood on Twitch. And so it's like they need punishment even if it breaks the theoretical principles that we have on YouTube. However, I also have to say that does feel a little bit like mental gymnastics. So I don't think it is a complete point against Nick, but I completely understand where he's coming from with that. Yeah.
Nick actually does this all the time. He gives these mealy-mouthed, tepid, half-baked criticisms where he's not really fucking saying anything meaningful, but then he'll go and point to them later as evidence that he's unbiased. Junk Drawer Gaming, a small commentary channel, helped identify this pattern in a recent video pointing out the massive holes in Nick's coverage. Specifically, the fact that he had never directly addressed Ethan exploiting Michaela's death.
But despite boldly disagreeing with Ethan on this over 6 months later, Nick still has never addressed Ethan weaponizing this woman's death to bolster his campaign to remove his detractor base from the internet.
And Nick's response, predictably, was to claim that he had in fact already criticized Ethan for this, but he can't possibly be referring to this.
I'm not going to cover this story because I feel like there's a ton of misinformation coming out about it.
Or this.
Yeah, I completely disagree with this.
So this supposed criticism must be this.
If we're going to make a critique towards Ethan, the one that sticks in the back of my mind, I think we covered it briefly.
No, you didn't.
There was a clip that came out. Was it someone killed themselves on Reddit or something?
Wow. Okay, already. Why does it seem like he's just pretending to not remember the details of the story?
And they were blaming like a snark subreddit that did it?
No, not they. Ethan. Ethan was the main person pushing this talking point.
But then a couple hours later, once people did research, it realistically didn't have anything to do with, or it didn't play a large role in what happened to that person. Like the snark community was extremely small,
the Fox charity
and then
girl.
it kind of got pushed into like, this is the danger of snark communities or whatever.
It got pushed. It got pushed. You mean Ethan pushed it? Ethan exploited a woman's death for his own personal benefit. But Nick will never say those words. He'll instead say things like this.
I think like maybe waiting to kind of see how things turn out before jumping on that would benefit everybody.
So Nick's key criticism of Ethan was actually just him giving general advice on how it will be good for everybody to do more patient research, and he avoids saying that Ethan did anything wrong. And now he's waving it around as proof that he's not a complete hack, and he's just hoping nobody goes back and checks. But by this point, the criticism is starting to mount. People aren't just asking about Ethan, they're asking about Nick. And that's a different kind of problem, because you can't exactly sweep criticism of yourself under the rug. You can either address it, or you can kill it. Nick is starting to feel some heat. People are asking questions, such as why the guy who built it...
I don't think there's a way for me to disagree with this. Nick just actively does not engage or outright, like, bans criticism from his chat. That is, an unfortunate truth, yeah.
His career on things like standing up against copyright abuse is suddenly silent when Ethan Klein does it. And every criticism of Ethan that goes unanswered is a criticism of Nick for not answering it. And he's aware of that. So when Nick runs cover for Ethan, he's running cover for himself too. People are talking about him, and Nick's go-to way of dealing with it is to do absolutely anything he can to simply disrupt the conversation, change the subject and make it about something else, reframe the attacks and make them sound completely different. Anything he can do to just kill the criticism. His favorite tactic is, instead of actually responding to things, he'll just try to flip them around on the person making the point.
Why did none of these people speak up against... I don't even understand. None of these people spoke up against Bad Empanada when he struck my Twitter 3 times? Are you serious? That's so crazy, guy. It's almost like they're team sports.
The criticism is about Ethan, Nick. Nobody was asking if everyone else is being consistent. What do you think about what Ethan is doing? But Nick still uses this move literally all the time.
And if that was what Ethan was striking down, if they weren't supposed to be market substitutes for segments like don't give the stream the view, watch it here, yeah, I mean, that's kind of shitty. That's kind of cringy. But none of these people operate in like the same world, I guess. Bad Empanada striking a clip of a video that I own most of the content of, that's fine because Nick DiOrio is bad. But Ethan Klein doing it is horrible because Ethan Klein is trying to censor people. By the way, I'm gonna need every...
It was Willie Mack. And Nick might have agreed with this. To a degree. There is an issue of scale. A problem gets worse as it gets bigger. I think this might have been something Nick agreed with. Although, I don't know if he ever even covered it. It was when Willie Mack claimed that like Queeman or a Queeman fan doxed him and his wife. And this was like, I think it was all over Twitter. I don't think Nick actually covered it in a video. But there is an issue of scale. Yeah, when Ethan does it, it is a little worse. He's a much bigger creator, and he's actually waving around legal power. So it kind of is worse whenever he's doing something wrong. Because other people aren't waving around legal power. Other people don't have as many followers or subscribers or whatever. And sure, I guess there's Bad Empanada, who people claim is doing like extrajudicial actions. He's a vigilante of the left. But like, that's like outside the purview of the internet. So weird.
Every single person who has the take on stream that going after sponsors is bad, I'm gonna need their takes audited. I want to know what they said 5 years ago about Keemstar. I want to know what they said about Pokimane. I need their take on all these situations to know if they're just sweeping.
I think literally everyone hated
Keemstar
until the Lolcow
who were
podcast
doing
came
market
out,
replacement type content. So that was all that I said. Was if that's the case, that's probably like fine. No, he's not. I'd say that would be fair also, but that's not what he's doing. I have a question. So what is Paige Christie's current position on the Denims, Frogan, and Casey Tron lawsuits? Are we going to maintain this position? I'm just curious, because I feel like mine's fairly consistent. Are we going to maintain this position that that would be fair also? I'm just wondering.
Clearly, instead of actually engaging with what's being said and potentially saying anything bad about Ethan, Nick would rather just aimlessly hypocrisy hunt. Anything to avoid being honest. Another one of Nick's favorite maneuvers is to just completely change what's being said about him, like when people point out his totally biased coverage.
And most of these guys have been doing the Ethan Klein. Oh, Nick, you cover Ethan Klein too much. I'm sorry, I have 3 segments from the last stream. Would you like me to post a 7-hour video instead? I gotta cut it up into pieces. Dude, it's the Great War being fought on the battlefield of like, I don't care about Ethan Klein anymore and I'm lashing out. I said I was so caught off guard by you saying that I was...
Never say, oh yeah, or oh, huh. That's probably because I watched the original clip and this is like putting it in a new perspective.
Fault because we had spoken about this topic and I didn't realize you thought that I was a principleless sellout. It completely caught me off guard. I interpreted at the time as you being upset that EHD was a content black hole where no other stories were getting attention and you were holding me almost personally responsible.
So this is the, oh, you just think I'm talking about Ethan too much. No, it's not just that. If you were just talking about Ethan and it was, you know, fair, whatever. There's obviously a criticism that I've got of, seems like you're being very favorable towards Ethan a lot, to a fault, you know?
So when someone says your coverage of Ethan is dishonest, Nick pretends they're saying, that Nicholas DiOrio...
You know what? With all the context of this, I actually feel one of the comments I said was very weird on Chud's part was that he said, you're being favorable to Ethan to a fault. No, in the Twitter DMs with Nick DiOrio. And when he put it in this perspective that it was almost like an open secret that Nick was being a sellout. That's like people's perspective, is that he was being a sellout. That's way more understandable why Chud would say that.
Guy. He talks about Ethan Klein too much. He's responding to a criticism that literally nobody made, and simultaneously trying to make his detractors sound very, very stupid. And if anyone is simply 100 IQ enough to see through all of this, friends or colleagues who might want to challenge Nick on his behavior, Nick just cuts them off, kills the conversation entirely.
Guys, key update. Nicholas Diorio has now blocked me on Twitter. Nicholas Diorio has now officially blocked me on Twitter.
He's not interested in maintaining any friendships. He's not interested in defending his viewpoints. He's not interested in being an honest creator. He's only interested in one thing: being a yes man. All of these little tactics and maneuvers that Nick pulls, those aren't the goal. The goal was always to find a way to become the #1 Ethan Klein ball washer.
Remember when this was like the worst thing ever? Remember when all these guys are like, Ethan Klein can't take criticism because they're posting shit saying you should watch this as an alternative to his actual content? Now we're just striking clips again. This is Bad Empanato all over again. These guys total hypocrites, dude. Total fucking hypocrites. This is insane.
Did you notice what happened there? 9 months have passed. Nick has never meaningfully covered the copyright strikes or the filings for the lawsuit against Stage 3 Snark. But all of a sudden, in the middle of one of his classic pointless hypocrisy hunts, Nick blurts out his actual stance on the topic, and to no one's surprise, it's just Ethan's side of things.
They're posting shit saying you should watch this as an alternative to his actual content. These guys total hypocrites, dude. This is insane.
It is insane. I thought you were waiting on more information, Nick. The truth is, there never is more information that Nick is waiting on. Nick isn't waiting for anything. He's just working.
Nicholas Diorio, the Pope, is in chat. He says the Godzilla collab is sick.
Aw.
My Teddy Freshwater has
Okay,
shipped.
the Godzilla collab
God,
was actually
Saint
pretty sick,
Nicholas.
guys.
The most notable example of this is Nick's readiness to defend Ethan's lies about Denim's chat during the CPS story.
Love made a good point. You said, is this every comment? I believe this is a live feed of the chat. This isn't edited.
What about the top right? I thought these were
No, it's
selected.
this, I think when you full screen it. No, this is an edit. It's a cutout of the full.
And then he plays the clip where Ethan explicitly tells you, okay, that they clipped the chat and it's like a fucking cutout of it.
Chat. It's just enlarged.
Oh,
there,
really?
Over the screen, yeah.
They're different, I think.
Yeah.
And like it's directly explained to you in the stream what exactly this is.
No, it's not. But it doesn't matter. Nick isn't watching this clip to evaluate whether it's true or form an honest opinion. He's watching the clip to find a way to push Ethan's bullshit, and his instinct is just to adopt whatever's being presented on screen without really analyzing or looking into it.
Okay, my opinion is that Ethan genuinely thought that it was like a cut segment of Denim's chat. He might still believe that. Now, at the time, his crew offered pushback, which he accepted and then reverted later. So I don't disagree with Nick there. But also, you can't really think that and go through the lawsuit. Which is what makes me agree that he probably hasn't gone through the Snark lawsuit.
I mean, the Snark lawsuits and copyright strikes, these things are key components of Ethan Klein's narrative over the last couple of years. Why do you think Nick was waiting so long to cover them?
Dude, it's already been 2 years, dude. Ethan should just give it up.
If he goes on like an anti-Semite doxing spree, I mean, that's gotta look so bad for everyone that promotes the fuck out of him. Nick Diorio, this is looking pretty bad, bro. What
How's
the
he
fuck?
gonna sweep this one up? How is Fatty gonna sweep for?
You gotta do something about this tonight, man.
I haven't covered 2 things with Ethan Klein, but I'll just give you kind of my rundown with them because I intend to cover them, but I'm trying to space this shit out because it was just so much back to back.
Right, yes, of course.
One being the lawsuit against the Snark subreddits.
So is the point here being that Nick, because there's an edit, like he gulps a lot. Is the point supposed to be that that's his tick? That's his lie tick? That's what I'm getting from it.
I do have a tweet about it. I feel like I'm gonna end up on the side of being opposed at this point from what I've seen so far. Principally opposed to what he's doing, but I think there are ways that he can win me. I need to see exactly what he's doing. I haven't watched his video about it. I intend to do it all at once. I think he says 2 weeks now until the lawsuit drops. So we will be taking a look at that.
Nick didn't say that because he was open to criticizing Ethan. He said it because his friend Augie reminded him that old commentary audiences were still watching, and Nick doesn't want those people to know that he was never actually the guy he pretends to be. Because if he ever actually looked at Ethan or Hasan honestly, by his own principles, the foundation of his entire channel, he would have to side against Ethan, but that's not an option. So instead, Nick just doesn't look. The thing about Nicholas Diorio, though, is that none of these things are technically lies. They're very Weasley, he's very slimy and intellectually dishonest, but he's not exactly lying. The lie is Nick doing all this stuff and then presenting himself as principled.
Do you have any actual principles at all? No, none of these people have any principles. It's not fun to be a principled streamer at this point.
Oh, well, I could have said some stuff to defend it, but with going on about, aren't you principled? I don't know. The best thing is I could say is that there are layers. This does come out pretty bad, but there are layers to it where it's like viewing like your side is YouTube and the other side is Twitch, and so like what would normally be a policing action turns into like a warring action, I guess. You know, it's like it's the difference between weeding out roots in your garden and going out somewhere else. And so the same principles don't apply. That's like the best thing I can come up with. Because I think a lot of people do view it that way. They view Twitch as like the enemy platform. I guess it was also kind of weird whenever Nick opened up donations on Twitch and reminded people that it existed. Although there were some funny bits about that, but still.
Is the lie.
The hypocrisy hunting is going to be extremely difficult for me to navigate because publicly I said that if a reactor doesn't react to your content, you should strike them. I said I'm against YouTuber lawsuits for the most part, but I do find it increasingly difficult to care about a Twitch streamer getting sued. The things that we have been saying for the last 5 years, if they had just been listened to at all and people made the slightest bit of effort, there'd be nothing here for Ethan to sue over.
This entire thing.
I mean, also, yeah, it does feel like all the old walls have come down from the late 2010s culture to current culture on YouTube. And so I do feel like principles should be, well, not should be necessarily. I think principles were actually kind of better back then. In some ways, not in all the ways. I would have to think about that a lot more. I don't think like a change is impossible from then, but it's also like a lot of conflation that could or could not happen. Like it's not a direct line. But a lot of people view it that way, and even themselves, they can see, they can like logic themselves into how they got that position, even if it's not necessarily a straight for other people to view, or even if it is like a very big leap from where they used to be. They can see how they made that leap, or may not see it at all, and it's like actually completely disconnected from what they're saying or believe. But they still feel like they're in that kind of culture group.
Thing is an attempt to silence creators that he doesn't like and to silence people he doesn't like.
Yeah, that's the best part of this, is that he scared a bunch of Redditors into shitting themselves and shutting an entire subreddit down.
In a way, it does also kind of feel like it's right because it's funny. And that's not necessarily something I disagree with. Content is content, right? You got to be bullish with it. But that's exactly it. You have to be bullish with it. You have to say content is content. It doesn't matter. And that's not necessarily a very principled thing. That's like a single principle. That's essentially like the entertainment version of might makes right. Is if it's funny, if it's entertaining, do whatever you want. And personally, that's something that I kind of agree with. But if you do claim to have all of these principles, you do kind of have to worm your way into like how all these other people are breaking them, like punishing them with like the sponsors and shit. I feel like it's past midnight. I'm very tired. I'm sorry for like being disjointed.
Type in on H3 Snark and go read what they wrote about Diorio and tell me how much I should feel bad for them that these little fucking rat fucks had to sit and cry and get scared for the night where they thought the big mean Ethan Klein lawsuit was going to be in the mail the next day.
Wow, this guy sucks. Nobody is asking you to feel bad for anybody. They're just asking if you think Ethan is doing something wrong. But this is exactly what Nick does. He actively runs away from having principles. And if he were just your average unprincipled grifter, I mean, that would be bad enough, but the thing that really makes Nick so contemptible is that he's also just a total fucking loser. I mean, not only is he so sensitive that it's literally a meme to be blocked by Nicholas Diorio on Twitter.
He blocked me. I've never spoken to this man in my life, Nick Diorio.
Oh, he does that. He does that.
He
yeah.
does
I haven't, but I haven't talked to him.
And not only is he this gross, cackling, nasally weirdo,
Because that's probably what he was until his girlfriend touched his penis. Remember, weight can be lost, hair can be growing back, but your body is ravaged forever. Listen, Puts, you gotta smile more. You know, just give them a little bit more of a smile. That would go a long way with the men watching.
But on top of all that stuff, he's also a total moron. Like, he admits he doesn't know anything about politics.
I'm not a political fucking streamer. I don't know anything about politics. I'm horrible at politics. I've been coasting.
So why the fuck would anyone ever listen to him talk about anti-Semitism?
So this is an event that was headlined by Vosh to platform Zog, and apparently they
Oh
didn't tell
no, he's
Zog
shitting on
that,
J-Rag.
Progressive Victory sent out like America's newest lolicon. Do you not know what Zog is? I think that's literally the guy's name.
Nick is kind of like one of those background characters from old high school movies. He's like that unnamed idiot that follows around the main idiot and like forces out laughs at their jokes.
Oh, McFly, your shoes are tied.
Starkey Tom is not the main character. He was the main character for like 2 weeks.
This is really all who
He's
Nick
not
is.
the
He's
main
literally
character.
this guy. Yet somehow, this very stupid, wheezing, uncharismatic, dishonest blob of a guy made more money in donations last year than fucking Candace Owens. And he did that
Bro,
by
he made more money than Pippa? No fucking way. She made 200K? God damn. $200,000. Jesus Christ. Donations go crazy. And Nick made 220.
at some point realizing that you can turn Ethan Good, Hasan Bad into a full-time job. But the Nikki D system still isn't complete. Not yet. Nick looks around. He sees Willie Mac's channel stagnating. He sees Tectone get a protective order granted against him. He sees Nux Taku get exposed for enabling grooming. He's looking down at which side of the aisle he's standing on, and he's panicking. So he starts worrying that he's possibly hitched his very large wagon to the wrong horse face. Nick's words, by the way, not mine. And he starts laying the foundation for the final step in his system, the step that ties the whole thing together, and the one that will allow him to repeat the whole process again. Distance. He sees the writing on the wall, and in classic Nick fashion, he starts planning his exit.
I hate this. I hate Hasan Piker, and I hate these people more. I hate these people so much. They're like actually fucking insane. Dude, people will put me next to these people because I also criticize Hasan Piker. There is too much of this going on in the hating Hasan Piker community. It's fucking insane.
Nick can feel the ship sinking, and he's trying to make sure he has a clean way out before he goes down with it.
Yeah, this is why nobody can get held accountable, because Hasan Piker is bad.
Okay.
Yeah, that is why no one gets held accountable, Nick. That's what my video is about. I'm glad we agree on at least one thing, but you don't get to be the one that points it out.
Well, Nick has also, I'm pretty certain he's mentioned that he won't cover smaller things specifically because they don't get the viewership. He won't cover like dating drama or whatever between two smaller YouTubers because where's the viewership? And it's unfortunate, but a lot of people like to shit on Hasan Piker, and sure, you can call that like a sellout thing to a degree. I don't even think that necessarily is. It might be selling out to be like so friendly to Ethan Klein. I think one of the things that people miss context on is like literally everyone like started to hate Ethan during his Leftovers era, including Nick Diorio, who helped Gokunaru make one of the more viewed videos on Ethan's downfall. Which I don't know if it necessarily holds up. I think parts of it definitely do. As a whole, I don't remember. And now getting so friendly with him because he's targeting the people that you also don't like. But he's doing it in a way that, from all the other things you said you don't like, you should also not like. Yeah, it's definitely weird.
Starting to get black-pilled a little bit. I get why people hate EHD stuff. It has given so many people a voice who are just like subhuman wretches. I am awake and I can see these people. I hate them too.
Oh my god, who does this guy think he's fooling? These people, as if he's not one of them. You are like them, Nick. Not because you're a rapist or a pedophile or anything like that, but because you're a liar, and you have massively profited off of doing the exact same thing that they are.
This is the dumbest hill for Ethan to die on? Snark clip chimping bullshit? I'm sorry, who let in the Hasan Piker
Well, okay, in my mind, I've always viewed Nick as a guy who goes with the culture, he goes with the flow. He doesn't really carve out necessarily his particular own culture. Like, even back whenever he started, the one time he did was with the Mama Mac stuff. But before that, it was very easy to go with the culture. Everybody hated Keemstar. Nick didn't target Keemstar, but he wasn't publicly friendly with him, although he was on Tommy C's show, who did not like Keemstar. After the fallout with, what was it called? Baited. But it was like much easier because the principles aligned with the general culture. And now the principles do not align with the general culture. Well, not the general culture, but the rich culture of Ethan's audience. From Kilo's perspective. I don't know why I keep saying that. It's like, I'm getting there. To be honest, I'm kind of getting there. But I don't necessarily take my opinions from Nick. I think some of his streams are fun. I think they've gotten a little tired. But I don't hate him.
He got hit on the Zionist policy, and I don't know how I feel about this. On one hand, I find it hilarious. On the other hand, I find it hilarious. It's Zionist, but with Zionist, it has 3 parentheses around either side. Everyone just fucking hates Jews now. It's insane. Oh no, they blacklisted the guy who supports terrorists. That's horrible. It's almost like Twitch has finally done something on their platform to moderate this abhorrent behavior. Like the levels of psychological warfare that we've reached for quote-unquote not liking Hasan Piker. Yeah, dude, we gotta take his kids away. A bunch of people use veiled anti-Semitism to attack Jews, specifically people he's friends with, and in some cases I would argue him. I don't agree.
Okay. Maybe I would actually give Nick a little bit more credit there because he's a New Yorker, and there actually have been incidents in New York of like real anti-Semitism coming from more leftist I don't know what you would call them. Groups, orientations, whatever. I remember a specific story. Well, I guess I don't remember it specifically. There was a story about how there was like a Stop Jewish Hate campaign, and then it turned out that a lot of it was coming from the black community, and then it like stopped getting much notice. They stopped making that many articles about it. A similar thing happened with Stop Asian Hate. A lot of that was localized to Nick's area, or some of it happened within the locality of Nick's area. Now it was localized. I believe a lot of it was also in California and Philly. Between those two groups. So I would give that maybe some leeway, but I get where he's coming from like the internet exclusive perspective.
With going after sponsors, but I kind of am. Her sponsor is Hasan Piker. Okay, so by going after Hasan Piker, I'm specifically targeting her income. Hasan Piker supports terrorists. I don't really understand what is the deceptive edit here. It's like maybe you shouldn't make yourself an extremely easy target while you're attacking this person's family. This is not even the first congressman that Hasan has jokingly told his audience to kill.
And now when he starts feeling public perception shifting ever so slightly away from him, he does what he's always done, and he starts trying to quietly pitter-patter away. Okay, maybe not so quietly. This is what he did with Bo Blacks.
Again, I kind of disagree because even like recently, nobody really likes Keemstar. I'd say at best people think of him as like neutral. And he is still publicly friends with Keemstar. Everyone was against Creator Clash, so you can't really say anything about that. I mean, Tommy C, he's still friends with Tommy C. Dude, I think pretty much everyone either doesn't like or doesn't care for Tommy C. And Nick is still friends with him. He did nearly cut off Turkey Tom. I'm surprised that hasn't come up because look, I think really Tom was probably into like a weird age play chick. Realistically, from what all the photos, all the Instagram posts, I think he was into a weird age play chick. And in my opinion, in my principles, that's weird, but that's legal and fine. It's gross, but that's fine. One of Nick's most important pillars, one of his 3 pillars, is he did not want Tom to be an age player, and he would cut off friendship with Tom if he was an age player. He did not cut off friendship with Tom, despite obviously the girl being an age player. It's just fucking obvious. And Tom also, like, being many photos of Tom with her in the same room together, whatever, going on dates. And maybe Nick did not know what an age player was. Maybe Tom downplayed how much of an age player she was, but the information is public. He did not cut Tom off. So you can say he broke one of his principles, but you also can't say that he just distanced himself. I mean, he kind of ended up doing that anyway because Half Baked Podcast is still on hiatus. That also might be Tom's doing.
He did it with Destiny to an extent. He'll coast off of popular sentiment for as long as he can, and only when things get too hot will he then turn his back and pretend like he was principled the whole time.
And when people say that you're sweeping or you're doing this, I've literally taken about 7 of my friends and former associates out back and put a bullet in the back of their head, so I really don't care. I've literally executed half this fucking space, so.
And one day Nick will do this to Ethan too. The public pressure will get to be too much, he'll find a new audience to leech from, and he'll drop H3 and pretend he had a good reason for it. And when that happens, Ethan will realize that he was actually right about Nick several years ago.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Yeah.
You argue with people on the internet and you get charged up, and you gotta realize that you're probably talking to someone that looks like this. And what I mean by that is a pimply-faced kid who, you know, he's a know-nothing. Like, if I met this kid in real life, I would literally you wouldn't think twice about it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But until then, Nick is gonna do what he always does. He'll take his earnings, and then he'll try to scurry away from the consequences of what he had to do to get them. Kind of like a rodent. A very, very large rodent.
Wesley, what about the RUSs?
Rodents of unusual size? I don't think they exist.
Nicholas DiOrio gets the Rodent of Unusual Size Award.
Dishonorable mention.
Ethan, do you not correspond with Destiny's podcast co-host Dan Saltman?
I've talked to Dan Saltman, but also I don't think that that's Destiny, is it?
Like, dude, I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up right now. All right, let's finish this segment. I'm keeping Dan Saltman away.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, grab a Diet Coke, and I will give some thoughts. I'm probably not gonna. I'll watch some of the more interesting stuff and mix that in with another segment next time I stream, because I do want to stream again Monday or Tuesday with the Destiny and Dan call in to Chud Logic to try to piece that together. Watch a few other people go over it, but I want to draw like a map of what's actually going on in there. All right. Hello, everybody. You know, I never even checked if I actually. Oh. On my laptop. All right. Yeah, so I don't know. I think the issue with this is that this makes a good case for Ethan. And look, to be fair, Nick has been covering Ethan for like, what, 2.5 years almost? I've gotten tired of it. However, I think this Nikki D system he's laid out is heavily focused on Ethan and is kind of... It's like 90% of the way there. Because what it needs is just one more example of him doing that. Like, who else is he really distanced from that he was, like, covering constantly before because he noticed a declining viewership? That he's, like, on good terms with, right? Because they're, like, if you're not friends with a person, you're not trying to be friends or whatever, that's just content. That's just you trying to pick the best topic for the day, for the stream. And I feel like you really can't find any. Now, if you want to say he doesn't take criticism, I totally agree with that. He blocks way too many people. He blocks people from his chat. He blocks terms from his chat. I don't think that's good. Like, sure, I get it. He just wants, like, one focused stream on the thing. But I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some forum for him to take criticism. And all the other streamers I watch take that, right? Chud, you can criticize in his chat. Dickers, you can criticize in his chat. Mrao chat, or through Twitter as well. Or even their Discord. You can make fun of them. You can whatever. If it goes too far, it goes too far. Whatever. But for the most part, you can just talk about these people. You can say, I didn't like this stream. I didn't like how you said this. I didn't like how you said that. And Nick, you can't really do that. That's a very fair criticism. But I think like most of the Nikki D stuff just needs to be reinforced with another example for me to like clearly believe it. Is Nick a sellout? Kinda. But also, like, it's really just his over friendliness with Ethan, which I do think is going to change, partly because Ethan's viewership is declining, like, kind of heavily. Just over the last, like, few months, even. I mean, Olivia's gone. Hila's not showing up as much. There's a lot more gambling. There's a lot. And it's just... I'm ready to move on. That's my problem. I always feel like the one criticism missing of Nick is that he's boring. You gotta have way more variety in the fucking content you do. And no, the opening segment talking about 20 different things in like 30 minutes, it's not enough. So when he gets into it for like 2 hours, like, whoa, I didn't expect to get in this for 2 hours. Well, yeah, that's because it's fucking entertaining. And it's not another fucking Ethan Klein segment. Or Denims, or Frogan, or EHDI+. And it's generally healthier. There's more engagement. People aren't making criticisms of you because you're actually talking about something unrelated to the main problem. So, yeah, I don't know. It's, like I said, it's 90% of the way there. I would just like an example where he's done this in the past, where he gets friendly with a person who's like the main content and then slowly distances himself afterwards. And you can say that maybe he's done that in similar ways, and I think that's what Kilo was going for. With Tipster and Bo Blacks, and whatever, but Nick, probably Tipster is the best example, actually, because I guess he was making some content with Tipster and then turned on him. Bo Blacks, technically he was making content with him, but that was usually on like Augie's channel or whatever. And even then, I mostly remember like the screaming matches he had with Bo Blacks. So I don't think this video is 100% fair. I think there's a little too many personal attacks. This feels not made for Nick to change. This is made to convince people that Nick is bad, and he's throwing in those attacks in there. In particular, I think the personal attacks are for people who like Tectone because they think he's buff. Actually kind of scrawny for a guy his height, and he also has man tits. But he like wears himself like he's an athlete, but he's obviously not. Do I want to keep going? It's midnight 30. Let's see some of these.
Dan's coming on soon.
Which, by the way, I guess I should just go ahead and say it. Me and Dan Saltman are going to have a YouTube exclusive stream pretty soon.
Dan Saltman.
I've actually been like
Israeli users from making new accounts. But aside from the fact that Dan potentially lied in the way that he presented this initial complaint, Twitch's totally understandable explanation didn't stop him and Ethan Klein from helping launch a full-scale PR attack on Twitch, and its full explanation.
Oh wait, that was a lie? Dan Saltman lying? No. No way. You're telling me Dan Saltman lied? No way. That's crazy.
Didn't stop him and Ethan Klein from helping launch a full-scale PR attack on Twitch and its sponsors, citing things like chat messages during Hasan's streams as evidence of Twitch harboring anti-Semitism. Another notable example they used was this panel during TwitchCon 2024, where a group of Arabic streamers ranked other creators according to their level of affinity for Arab culture or something. Now, it would be totally fair to criticize the people who hosted this panel for it being stupid and not funny.
Look, I respect Dan as a coder. I don't respect him for a lot of the Jewish stuff. A lot of the Hasan stuff. Jam a man of fortune, jam a seek his fortune. If a man is to be judged by his enemies, then I am well off, for I have the honor of being hated by the most worthless of men, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. Goethe? Goethe.
You look around the scene, right?
Oh, not Rev.
And you see people like Hasan Piker with his crocodile tears. This was his reaction to the shooting. I cannot believe
indifferent.
Commentary on Israel and Palestine is almost exclusively antagonism towards people who, above all else, morally object to the genocide in Gaza. It sort of has the function of supporting genocide, because as Noah puts it,
the arguments they're attacking him for are anti-genocide arguments. So these creators, they're positioning themselves in opposition to him and his arguments, de facto positioning themselves on the pro-genocide side. Anti-genocide is pro-genocide.
Which isn't really that unreasonable. And when you think about it that way, it further illustrates that the widespread Zionist perception of Ethan is really just a product of his own behavior.
Let's bring an Iraqi terrorist group to your neighborhood and you just go out and be slaughtered, and your mom be slaughtered, and your kids be slaughtered, and you burned alive. And again, I'm saying that I support Palestine. I don't know how more I can express that.
But Noah also lays out the thing that we've been demonstrating for the last 3 hours, that there is a massive and corrosive financial incentive to make content that paints Hasan Piker in the worst possible light. And it's gotten worse since he made that video. Guys like More Pegasus, Sensitive Society, and WestJet have virtually perfected the craft. And it's not just creators.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely true. I think, ironically, Nick DiOrio is one of the few people I know who actually defended Hasan when Willie tried to call him a furry. None of that has anything to do with the actual violence happening.
There's an entire network of entities across multiple platforms, all feeding off each other to spread misinformation and baseless character attacks about Hasan. Places like LSF on Reddit or Yeet on Twitter. These function as dedicated anti-Hasan news networks that feed back directly into the machine. A clip gets posted, a creator makes a video on it, the news networks post clips from those videos. It's this bizarre incestuous cycle of people just jerking each other off about how terrible Hasan Piker is.
That's totally
it's
true.
Funny, for how much Ethan Klein cries about an organized harassment campaign, you would be shocked at how organized Hasan BAD is.
Fucking A, let's go. Ethan Klein, Destiny, Dan Saltman, who else is there out there that is pushing the fuck Hasan narrative? There has to be more of us.
Well, it's happening organically because people realize that Hasan is a crazy person. Yeah.
Well, I think one of the things that kind of seals it for me that it's like organized is because if it wasn't organized, well, one, if it wasn't organized, not that many people would be talking about it. But I feel like a lot of the Skeptosphere people would be talking way more about Hasan, and they don't like Hasan, but they don't talk about it every time they talk about anything, right? Like if you have like Nerdrotic, Aiden Paladin, Sargon of Akkad, they're not talking about Hasan all that much, even though they're on like completely opposite sides of the spectrum. Like Aiden Paladin's like a monarchist or something. A Big Bungie's like a monarchist, but they're not talking about Hasan all the time. Instead, you have these like, I mean, they're like liberals, right? They're slightly left-leaning for the majority of them are talking about Hasan. And I think that's because Dan and Destiny, from behind the scenes, are specifically trying to get creators on board who are popular and not in a bad light.
Bad guy. I am so happy that I could be part of this.
But it's like, oh, well, why not get Hasan or Sargon? He has a decent viewer base and like a very loyal base, even if it's not like a great one. Well, it's because Sargon has bad PR, duh, and dude, my brain just blanked. I like moved on to the next point I was thinking of. Sargon has bad PR, and you don't want that being associated with you. It's the same reason why I think
this movement,
Food Shops, does not talk about Hasan all that often, is because they're probably being told not to.
To destroy this fucking terrorist motherfucker.
So this goes beyond a genre.
It's not that they're being told not to. It's that Dan or Destiny are not specifically reaching out to tell them to stream about it because they want to keep this in the best possible light. Despite Dan being kind of a crazy person and going against all the principles that people actually have, like don't go after sponsors.
An entire ecosystem. But the attacks on Hasan are also often exaggerated, misleading, or even outright false. And
the one exception I have is Raycon for slave labor, but I mean, that's like tons of fucking companies.
As we've already seen, there's quite the ragtag band of rapists, liars, and complete morons that are most responsible for pushing them. So all things considered, it can be a little difficult to parse what information about Hasan is actually real. So to wrap up this video, let's go through some of the most sensationalized and infamous claims about Hasan Piker and see which ones hold up. Let's start with one of the most widespread and craziest headlines about Hasan that still gets repeated to this day. Hasan visited a brothel in Germany that was raided for trafficking minors. Now, this story comes in a few different forms depending on who's telling it. You've got Dan, who very strategically says that Hasan visited a brothel that was later raided for human trafficking. Nuxtaku more aggressively states that the brothel was raided for the trafficking of at least one minor. And on the most extreme end of the spectrum, Destiny outright claims that Hasan literally raped a 15-year-old. So here's what actually happened. A long time ago, Hasan visited the legal Artemis brothel in Berlin, which is a pretty famous and reputable establishment. In 2016, this brothel was raided on suspicion of human trafficking, but the entire process, which involved 530 investigators, yielded no results. In fact, the authorities recommended no changes to the brothel's employment process or working conditions. And in present day, they're actually 100% compliant with Germany's Prostitution Protection Act. When the public prosecutor's office tried to salvage some remaining charges out of this case, the court rejected all of them. And it's noted here that it's rare for an indictment in Berlin to be considered so weak that it doesn't even open a trial. As a result of all of this, the local government publicly apologized to the Artemis
Tagesspiel.
brothel and compensated them almost $300,000 for damages caused.
Whoa.
Now, there is one truthful element to this story. The raid was prompted by a witness whose abusive older boyfriend had been forcing her to work at the brothel, and she was reportedly underage. Her pimp was sentenced to 7 years for this. But this was just one criminal using an otherwise legal venue to exploit somebody. This wasn't the brothel itself trafficking kids. And the only reason you would ever care about someone supporting a business where something like this happened is if the business itself did something that led to it happening. And following an extremely thorough investigation, a court rejection, and a formal apology from the city, that pretty clearly seems to not be the case here. So if you're telling me your standard is that all 100,000 people who visit the brothel each year are child rapists because of this one isolated incident, I just think you're lying. It's been speculated that the primary reason for the raid was actually that the city was missing out on substantial tax revenue because of the pay structure of the workers. Now, we can't know if that's true or not, but it is entirely possible that this whole thing had almost nothing to do with that one incident at the brothel. And
This says Hell's Angels brothel, but not Artemis? Oh, Hell's Angels brothel. Oh, it's owned by Hell's Angels, or they're alleging that. Okay.
to top it all off, that lone isolated incident happened 6 years after Hasan visited Germany. So this entire child trafficking claim about Hasan is built on a story about one incident that happened 6 years after he was there, at a brothel that was never even charged with anything and was compensated for the investigation. And as a side note, I also want to mention that Artemis ended up donating said compensation to a children's hospital. So, happy endings. This whole story is really just a lazy way to desperately try to attach bad things to Hasan's name.
I said that Hasan Piker visited a brothel that was later raided for suspected sex trafficking. Actually, Hasan wasn't there. Yeah, that matters. Yeah, that matters. And misleading. That matters.
So while the underlying facts about this claim are somewhat true, the implications about Hasan that people make from them are deliberately misleading. Next claim. Hasan threatened to kill
Okay,
a
that
US
editing was a little goofy. The bing.
You may remember from earlier.
Yeah, he didn't do that. Son shocked his dog.
Here's the thing. Kaya is obviously a well cared for animal. She goes on multiple walks a day, she has regular playtime with other dogs, and everyone attests to how loved and spoiled she is.
I have the best dog. It's crazy. Like, if there was a dog Olympics, like, she literally clears it. She is the #1.
And shock collars, while not my preference, are a legal and still somewhat widely used training tool. This is basically the dog equivalent of spanking a child. You can disagree with it, and I do also, but the idea that this represents some pattern of abuse is pretty silly. And if Hasan does use a shock collar and then lied about it, I kinda get why, considering this situation led to some people filing reports to have Kaya taken away. Does anybody really think it would be better for Kaya to be entered into the foster system rather than staying in the LA mansion where she seems to live a largely spoiled and happy life? Look, if you want to criticize him for using a shock collar, that's totally fine. That is a legitimate concern. But this story quickly stopped being about Kaya and turned into yet another desperate scramble for a smoking gun to use.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that blows up into, like, Dan blowing it up way too much. I mean, yeah. I think I've given my take on that. I don't actually remember. Yeah, Hasan probably, like, almost certainly shocked his dog. It would not be better in the foster system. It would not be better in a pound. And people are like, oh, it would be given away. No, it'd probably get lost in the system, as like 99% of dogs are. And it's like, yeah, you shouldn't use, like, I think there's probably more, I don't know, this is so off topic from what the video was originally about. It's about Dan, right? That's how it connects, but it's like a tangent. I totally disagree with Hasan's methods for training his dogs, but like, and I think it's morally wrong. It is legal. You can do it. But it's like, for a pit bull, sure, whatever. For like his like designer dog, whatever. I don't think it's necessary. I do think Hasan wants the dog to stay there for an overly long amount of time. For his stream. I'm not sure it's as well taken care of as he says. But I don't think it's like abused. At least in like the real like legal sense of abuse
against Hasan.
Do I personally care about Kaya? I could give a fuck about Kaya. That said, yeah, it's fair to push this because it hurts Hasan, and Hasan is a bad person.
Spending a month covering it, filing animal welfare reports, and demanding Twitch ban him over this. These just aren't really proportionate responses to what he actually did. So I don't know, man, this obviously isn't ideal.
Yeah,
but
that's
to
true.
me, even as someone who doesn't eat meat and also likes dogs, it's just not that serious. Chill the fuck out. Next, Hasan supports terrorism. Even just engaging with this claim makes me feel like I'm losing on principle. And just to be clear, I don't really think that anything I'm about to say is particularly insightful. But what does supports terrorism even mean? Because if it means speaks positively of organizations that have been designated as terrorist groups by the US Department of State, then yeah, sure, he does do that. But when most people, especially apolitical commentators, say this about Hasan, that's not really what they're saying. They're using it as this severe moral condemnation, as though it's just self-evidently true that
Well, I think
supporting
the
any
thing that's
terrorist group
always-
is morally horrible. And
The thing that's always been super funny about this is I think in America, this might be because I'm technically a part of the Irish diaspora, there's always been like this weird support for like the IRA because we hate the English as like kind of a meme, as the IRA is throwing off the English yoke. And it's like you make jokes about it, but like everybody knows that the IRA isn't actually that good, right? Nobody will say that. Nobody will just be out clear like, guys, the IRA is actually really bad. Like everybody just knows that they are. Now, I think Hasan does give like actual like thought thing, like he thinks he supports any of these terrorist groups because in the same way that Dan is like all means are necessary to take down Hasan within internet means at least. But if it came down to the wire, I don't think Hasan would actually support these terrorist groups.
end of conversation. But if your definition of a terrorist is just whoever the government says is one, then surely you think anybody who supported the American Revolution or Nelson Mandela is a bad guy. That doesn't sound right. So if that's not your definition, and it's something more like someone who carries out political violence against civilians, then unfortunately groups like the IDF are also terrorists, and people who call their pilots heroes are supporting terror. I think there are basically two types of people who make this criticism. The first one, which is probably the vast majority, is somebody who just hasn't thought very hard about what terrorist actually means.
Yeah, that's
or
true.
how the list of them is historically just determined by the interests of those in power as much as anything else. But the other much smaller percentage of people that make this criticism are probably just saying that he's supporting groups that they don't personally agree with supporting. But this sounds like way less of a moral condemnation and more like you just disagree. Like, are you saying your big moral issue with Hasan is that he supports the rebel group in Yemen instead of the Western-backed government, who, by the way, have likely killed far more civilians than the Houthis have? Norway is an example of a country that does have a list of designated terrorist
Well, look,
groups.
I
A
do think
list
the founding fathers were like, if they lived today, they'd probably be on that list if we were still like an English colony or whatever. That's just true. Dude, the fucking Christmas Day massacre of the Hessians. Fuck yeah, that would be terrorism. Holy fuck, that was evil. Had to be done for the war. That was fucking evil. Yeah. Dude, fucking Sherman's, dude, I forget what it was called. The March to the Coast, I think it was. Like burning, starving hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people for the political and military gain of the Union. Yeah, that's fucking terroristic as fuck. It's like the right thing to do in a kind of a strategic sense, but that's evil. It hurt people probably way more than necessary. Yeah. But they were right to do it. I just don't think any of these Middle Eastern countries are right to do what they're doing.
That notably does not include the Houthis. So if Hasan moved to Norway, would he then be all good to go on saying positive things about them? And furthermore, somebody supporting the cause.
Oh, right. There's a specific correction about this line, I believe. Norway's designation of these groups isn't as straightforward as I outlined here. They do simply refer to the EU's list of sanctioned organizations. These are sanctioned groups on the list that are not necessarily considered terror groups officially. The Houthis are an example of a group. This point doesn't require a real example to be made. You can just imagine a fictional country that designates terror groups and doesn't name the Houthis.
Of a group like the Houthis doesn't mean that they support all of their tactics.
Any kind of violence against civilians is completely unjustifiable.
Speaking positively of a group is not the same as endorsing every action they've ever taken, and collapsing that distinction is how you wind up with a completely useless definition of support. Now, there is obviously some utility to the word terrorism in humanitarian and international law, but that's just not really what's typically being discussed when most people say this stuff about Hasan. Most of them are just saying, he supports terrorism, and terrorism is bad, which is not really an argument. I have a lot more to say about this topic, but I'll keep it short and say that you're kind of telling on yourself if your big criticism of Hasan is that he, quote, supports terrorism. Because while he does express views that a lot of people find uncomfortable, his position on this is actually closer to that of a significant portion of international legal scholars, human rights organizations, and frankly, a lot of the world outside of the West. I mean, hell, George Lucas made billions of dollars off of terrorism.
No.
So to be honest, I can't even really evaluate the truth of this claim because it's kind of a nonsensical, thought-terminating criticism, and I don't even really know what the fuck people are actually saying when they make it. And speaking of terrorism, Hasan interviewed a terrorist. Let's keep this brief. Hasan interviewed Rashid al-Haddad in early 2024. He's a Yemeni influencer and self-described media personality and photographer. Hasan was under the impression before the interview that Rashid was affiliated with the Houthis, probably because of the nickname that people gave him on social media, but he quickly corrected himself when he realized that he wasn't. There is no evidence that Rashid participated in seizing any ships or has any formal Houthi association. People use really dumb pieces of evidence to say, oh no, he is a Houthi, like this Instagram comment, where he just says he is a soldier, which could mean almost anything, or the photos that he took on this captured vessel, which was open to the public for photos. But ultimately, it wouldn't really matter if he was a Houthi.
I actually didn't know that.
Hasan should be allowed to interview terrorists on stream.
I was actually
There's
about
just
to
no
bring up
evidence
the
this
fact
guy
that
is
he
one.
was on that ship, and that's okay. I didn't know that.
Rashid is currently suing Ethan Klein for repeatedly calling him a terrorist. So based on the evidence that we have, this one's also kind of bullshit. And finally, Hasan is anti-Semitic. This claim could be
Okay, well, I mean, I don't think that's I don't think he's a good guy, but I don't know what damages could even be done. I don't know enough about the political situation in Yemen to, I guess, give an opinion on that. Okay, I'll accept that for now.
own video, and this one's long enough as it is, so I'll keep this brief too. The evidence that people cite for Hasan being anti-Semitic is either extremely amorphous and vague, or simply not good evidence at all. There's him calling a chatter pig dog,
You fucking bloodthirsty, violent pig dog! Suck my dick!
which people claimed was an anti-Semitic slur, even though—
Yeah, I never bought into that. Pig dog is just... Yeah, what the fuck?
though it doesn't appear in common anti-Semitism glossaries, and Hasan primarily uses it to describe capitalists and imperialists.
Yeah, pig dog has always been in my mind. Like, that's what, capitalist pig dog.
Imperialist, capitalist pig dog, you fucking violent murderer of the third world.
There's him calling Orthodox Jewish settlers inbred, which was clearly just supposed to be an insult directed at people who subscribe to a racist ideology, not Jewish people as a group.
You know, the broad majority of the ultra-Orthodox are also unimaginably racist and very much pro-Israel. I can't wait for these inbred motherfuckers to have to serve and see what happens to the IDF.
And beyond that, most of the rest of it are just these nebulous, broader claims about his positions on Israel and how they point to an underlying bigotry. But almost every single example that people use for this often could be better explained by him simply being anti-Zionist. For instance, people often point to things like Hasan saying that rapes having happened on October 7th wouldn't change his perspective as evidence of anti-Semitism. But that's not anti-Semitic. It's actually a pretty consistent application of Hasan's anti-imperialist framework. And if there's a perceived double standard in how aggressively he talks about Israel versus other actors, it could very easily be explained by his own family background in the Middle East, or the region's history, rather than automatically assuming it's just secret racial animus towards Jews. He isn't uniquely fixated on Jewish institutions. He applies this same lens to American imperialism, Saudi Arabia, capitalism, and plenty of other power structures. I think in 2026, if you look for anti-Semitism hard enough, you'll kind of see what you want to see. But the idea that this progressive, leftist, anti-class, equality-minded type of audience are actually secretly racist towards this one group of people, it's a pretty big stretch when these people are consistently anti-racist on every other axis. Now, the more sophisticated version of this argument is that even if Hasan never says anything explicitly anti-Semitic, his rhetoric still functions to foster hostility towards Jewish people, even if that isn't his intent. This is basically the functional racism version of the argument. It's the same thing as saying voter ID laws are racist. It's not because the people writing them necessarily want to disenfranchise black people, but because they do disproportionately cause that to happen. But for one, that argument requires you to subscribe to a view of racism that isn't really speaking to the character or intent of the individual, which kind of makes it have less bite. And two, that's if you subscribe to that framework, which I personally don't.
I feel like
so
I feel like there's a lot to take in here, and it's 1 a.m. I mean, I still disagree with Hasan, but I guess I understand a lot more where he's coming from, or at least like understanding the consistency now. But I guess it's more so I just disagree with Hasan's like philosophy at a base, rather than necessarily his consistency. Maybe he is a lot more consistent than I thought. But I still don't like him. I still disagree with him. Oh my god, do I try to even finish the video or do I just stop here? I am knocked out, dude. This is kind of just fact checking, so it's like, sure, your evidence, and this guy seems pretty well researched, says that this is true or false or whatever. But is that everything? Probably not, but it's good enough. There's Hasan's dog. There's some anti-Semitic. Does Hasan have any Jewish friends? I do think he's anti-Zionist. I don't know if he's anti-Semitic. Or I've never really been pro either party, either pro-Palestine or pro-Zion. So it's kind of hard for me to say. I mean, that's always been a question. That's been a question that has gone around the world for like 200 years almost. Since even before the 1900s, barely before. So maybe like 150 years. It's like people want the Jewish diaspora to have their own nation that they can go to. Where the fuck do you put it? Like, oh, their ancestral territory. That is now somebody else's ancestral territory. Oh no. It'd be great if they could live together. They just don't want to. And a bunch of other considerations have happened. I believe there's even an Israeli oblast in Russia that borders China. There's Alaska was considered at one point, Ethiopia, Madagascar, a few other places, I think. It's like, by creating a new nation, you're displacing someone most of the time, unless you're uniting a cultural group like Germany or Italy. Even then, I'm certain there were some people who were like, I don't like being Italian. I was Venetian. I was Tuscan. Now I'm Italian? What the fuck? He says he's anti-imperialist. Look, I'm just saying. Ever played EU5? Ever played EU4?
Opinion calling Hasan anti-Semitic isn't even misleading. It's just not substantiated. There are obviously a lot more claims we could go through, but the pattern is pretty clear. The lies about Hasan Piker that come from this side of the internet.
Also, I do think things are flying, like there's a lot of text flying by very quickly, and he's trying to wrap up the video, so I get it, but I'm not catching this. I'm having to pause, go back. Hasan Piker tells his audience how to blah, just make drones, you can purchase them online.
But the pattern is pretty clear. The lies about Hasan Piker that come from this side of the internet are pervasive, they're widespread, and an embarrassing number of them fall apart under even mild scrutiny. This video was focused on the drama and commentary side of this dynamic. Ethan Klein, the people around him, and what they've done to the content creation ecosystem over the last couple of years. But truthfully, this is only half of the story. Hasan also gets a hysterical level of hate from the more genuinely politically oriented crowd too, and that stuff could probably be its own video. But at some point, the commentary slop guys started getting courted by the politics sphere to the Hasan BAD cause anyway. And then when you have creators like Hutch, who covered Collargate for a month straight, and whose channel often looks almost indistinguishable from Nuxtaku's, it's just at a certain point, these two groups kind of start to morph together into this big, neurotic mess. And it just gets a little hard to keep taking him as seriously.
I hate Hutch.
Now, there are decent criticisms of Hasan. For example, in his interview with Rashid, he laughs along at the idea of Houthi pirates dancing and having fun with their captives, which could be Hasan basically sanitizing a Stockholm Syndrome type of situation. If you're gonna have this type of interview, you probably need to come in more prepared to handle those moments responsibly. He's also an extremely sloppy communicator, and at a certain point, if you're getting clipped dishonestly this much, you gotta be doing something wrong somewhere. And there are plenty of these.
True,
you know, he does tend to moderate his views in contentious conversations. He does have some questionable opinions on oppressive governments. One of my big ones is that he
it's so
has on
funny
occasion
that
spread
he's like
misinformation.
anti-imperialist and then is like so like I don't know if he would call himself pro-China, but he's definitely a lot like less judgmental of them. Whenever they're probably like the second largest scale imperialist at the moment. I mean, America might be that now with what's going on in Iran, but those are usually short excursions. But with China, yeah.
That I think he should retract or correct. There are fair critiques to make.
And like, I'm praising Cuba so much when Cuba is like essentially like a successful Soviet puppet, and so successful it outlasted the Soviet Union. That's not totally true, but that's fine for like the most basic geographical thing. Looking into it more, that's not exactly how it is, but whatever.
We sort of left the realm of reasonable, honest perception of Hasan a long time ago, and we're now in the land of Hasan is literally like Hitler. And this Hasan BAD virus has gone mainstream. Every week it seems like there's a new article from a big publication trying to convince people how terrible Hasan is, often citing these out-of-context clips or quotes that came from our side of the internet. Dan Selman is even writing news articles now, pretending to give some thoughts on a Senate race in Michigan. But in reality, it's just about Hasan. It's always just about Hasan. This is like kind of insane. Whatever you can honestly say about Hasan Piker, he isn't fucking dangerous. He doesn't deserve to be deplatformed. He's just a goofy Turkish dude saying crazy political shit from his gaming room.
If I step foot wearing this outfit in Toronto, I can't have my hair showing. I can't wear a skirt. I can't have my arms out.
Yeah, I can't wear my skirt in Tehran. I can't.
So I think with the commentary angle, saying that it merged like recently or out of nowhere is not true. I mean, he didn't say that, but I don't think he gave enough context for that. It kind of came in due to what was it, Chairgate? Such a cringy name people gave to it, where Hasan would just leave a video running and have only his chair there. And then that happened, that basically finished off almost as soon as was it Collargate started? There were a few months in between those at least. And then into the Frenemies split up. Not Frenemies, sorry. Fuck, what was the name of his podcast that Ethan Klein did with Hasan? But it was like an in-between situation where you would have drama about Hasan, political disagreements with Hasan, and these became so frequently changing with each other, or like handoffs essentially, that you just close the hands. And so these merged with each other. And so everyone started doing both at the same time. Whenever, you know, Nick Diorio is much more apt at covering actual drama. Let's just say this, for example. Pretend you don't hate Nick Diorio if you're one of the people who do. He's much more apt at handling drama, and Destiny is much more apt at handling politics. Let's just say, for example, whatever. I don't like Destiny. So these merged into people just handling stuff that they can't. Destiny, I don't think, is actually that good at handling drama. Unless it's related to his own life, then he's able to kind of put like the Destiny seal of approval on whatever manifesto he writes. But outside of that, I don't think Destiny has the best opinions on, like, what's this guy's relationship stuff? Oh, blah, 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 blah. He doesn't like get a normal person's mindset, so he's kind of bad at portraying that. Whereas Nick Diorio does get a normal person's mindset for the most part. And sure, things might fall apart under like higher scrutiny, but he puts on an entertaining show most of the time, and some of the time.
Eat Kubi Day. Whoopee, don't you understand? I can't wear bikini to the beach. So obviously, they all need to die. We need to kill them.
So whether you're one of these teen liberals people blaming Hasan for all their self-inflicted problems, or you're a slop commentary YouTuber who won't know what to do if you have to cover anything else, please, by all means, hate Hasan, but just be fucking honest about it. This whole Hasan derangement thing, especially recently, has gotten completely out of control. Because here's what's kind of telling. Hasan, despite the smear campaigns, despite people trying to take his dog, despite being called a terrorist and an anti-Semite and a rapist, he's never sued anybody. He's never tried to get anyone deplatformed or gone after entire websites. It turns out, Hasan, not bad. Hasan, pretty good actually. Ethan Klein, on the other hand, just recently filed a lawsuit against Noah Samson for the opinion that Ethan was through his content choices, running defense for a genocide. That's Noah's belief. Ethan wants to control whether Noah is allowed to express it. And every creator who's been profiting off of Hasan BAD while also cheering on Ethan's anti-free speech behavior should ironically probably be thanking Hasan for not holding them to the same standard that they're celebrating. You know, for not being like Ethan. The thing about people like Ethan, who try to convince people that they're wrong for expressing their opinion, for criticizing them, or even just for hating them, they are the ones with the problem. They're the ones who can't help themselves from going out of their way to read every word that people write about them. They're insecure, irrational thinkers who desperately want to control how people perceive them, and it drives them crazy that they can't. So whether it's Willie Mac, or iDubbbz, or me, or anybody else in this video, talk your shit about them. You shouldn't let somebody like Tectone convince you that you're the wrong one for believing that he's a sexual predator. Don't let Nicholas Diorio dissuade you from calling him out for being a giant pathetic loser. Talk your shit and let other people talk their shit to you. Even if you truly hate the guy, you should be a Hasan. Don't be an Ethan.
Yeah. I mean, I thought this was a really good video.
There's someone I want to introduce. It's a guy who's one of the great internet philosophers of our time, and he's somebody I think Ethan Klein would have a lot in common with. His name's John Card, and in his video on Pirate Software, he has something to say that I think applies to Ethan Klein perfectly.
Hell yeah, Card reference.
Some people out there in the world who think it's just inherently wrong or regressive or childish to hate people or to rail against public figures online or whatever. And those people are wrong. Wrong, and just trying to run cover for all the other people in the world who deserve criticism. When do you find someone who deserves all the hate they're getting, and much, much more, encourage that hate, feed it, remind yourself and others that it's perfectly okay, good even, to wish all the worst in the world on this guy and people like him. You shouldn't just merely dislike the man or simply disagree with his opinions. You should hate him and everything he stands for and represents.
Art posting is fun and right sometimes. Does Ethan Klein look like JohnWayneGacy.com? Yeah, I think that was a pretty good video from the segments we watched. I doubt that any of these are bad. Any of the segments are bad. The only other correction is from one of the segments we didn't watch, which is upon thinking about it a bit more, Casey Strawn's statements can be interpreted in both ways. Yeah, so I think I learned a good bit, I think, actually, about this. Well, I was already like saying Ethan was like boring and I didn't really like his podcast. But with all that stuff like laid out more clearly, I've never claimed to be the most cognizant person, except if I'm like having all that laid out before me is actually pretty cool. I feel like I learned a lot about the hypocrisies of Ethan and whatever. At the very least, well, I've always thought that the lawsuits are like completely breaking culture. I don't think I've ever, dude, I really hope I never said that I agree with the lawsuit. I don't think I ever did. I don't think suing anybody is good. For YouTube stuff, at the very least. It's just YouTube. It's just online stuff. You close your eyes and it stops happening. And like, if Ethan could find the people who did the CPS stuff, sure, that's fine. Or not the CPS stuff. The skull stuff, that's a bit menacing. I kind of get that. The CPS call, especially with Ethan's own calling of his own Giardia. What the fuck? Like, it's understandable why somebody would do that, especially if you worry them so much. And it could even be a fan. A fan might have thought, damn, this Ethan guy needs some help. Maybe like a crazy fan. But like, I feel like that at least opens up the other perspective. I still don't think you I don't know. It's really hard to say anything against it, especially in the context of Ethan just going so hard with how disgusting his house was and his kids doing whatever. That was fucking nasty. I'll probably have to talk with some people to talk out that idea more because yeah, that's a different perspective. Also, not having it put in such an abrasive way, Queeman, I think is better. Maybe that just shows I'm low IQ or something. I didn't watch all of Queeman's coverage anyway, so it's like whatever. But I don't know. Speaking with such reckless abandon, if everything is actually 110% okay, speaking with such reckless abandon kind of makes it your fault. Right? I don't know. I do kind of wonder, for my own reason, it's just like curiosity, I guess. Like, how does Ethan like self-internalize all this stuff? How does he come to grips with the fact that he said all this stuff about his kids having Giardia? with the CPS call. Does he connect the dots even? I don't know. I'd have to rewatch the podcast after that to see what happened. Maybe I'll do that. I probably won't. Okay, so the next stream, I'll probably come back to this for a little bit to watch the Cameron F305 and Willie Mack sections, but then I really want to cover the Chud Logic stuff with Destiny and Nick Andros and Shamu. I might even watch Food Shops covering it, because Food Shop seems like kind of like a little cow. But yeah, all right. Have a good night, anybody who tuned in. Hope to see you then.